Lovely. Thank you all very much. And good morning, everybody. And that has been a bit of an epic to get us all started. And I do apologise once again for all the delays that there has been, and especially to those who perhaps have been waiting for the YouTube to go live and perhaps been wondering what's been happening. I do apologise. We have had some IT issues which have meant we've not been able to start the live stream until now. And we wanted to make sure that everybody who is in the public who is interested are able to see and hear exactly what is going on. But hopefully we're all here and we're all online now. So this is an official good morning and welcome to West End Borough Council's Development Management Committee meeting on the 24th of November. We do have a little bit of housekeeping that we would generally go through. I think all members should be familiar with the scheme by now with regard to muting microphones and using the chat box to indicate as and when they wish to speak. As we've already said, that if people do lose internet connection as individuals, then the meeting will be adjourned briefly to allow you to come back online. So if in the event of any members of the press or the public lose internet connection, as opposed to at our end, we won't be able to adjourn, I'm afraid. We have one application before us this morning, and that will be follow the normal procedure. With the case officer presenting their report, followed by the registered speakers being invited to speak. Members of the committee will be able to question each speaker on points of clarity if they so wish as they go through. Our speakers are already in the meeting, and we do thank you again for your patience. And you, of course, will be welcome to stay for the entire length of the application. Once we get to the right part of the meeting, then the recommendation will be moved and seconded, and this enables debate. It's not an indication of how people are going to vote. At the conclusion of that debate, then I shall call for the vote. And every councillor who is in attendance will be called to confirm they are present for the entire item and then asked to vote for, against or abstain. As always, could I remind members that if anyone is minded to vote against the officer's recommendation, which would result in the application being lost, then you will need to be prepared to give clear reasons for refusal, supported by the relevant policies from the joint local plan, as that is what will be relied on in any subsequent appeal. If any member has a disclosable pecuniary interest, then again you will need to leave the meeting for the duration of this particular application and will be required to disconnect from the call, and will be invited back in once that application has been determined to take part in the rest of the meeting. So please could I just as a final note remind members to remain focused on the application being considered and to keep questions and comments short and to the point. The minute taker will find it harder than normal to identify who is speaking and what is being said, so please do speak clearly and at a reasonable place. Where an officer wishes to speak, they will indicate using the chat facility. So we have our slightly different officers in this morning carrying out functions. So I'm going to ask Mr. White if he would be kind enough to take the roll call. That's to ensure that all can hear and be heard and to confirm that the meeting is quorate. And after that, he will advise the committee of the officers present and their role. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's with a bit of bated breath, members. So in alphabetical order, Councillor Cheadle.
I'm here and I can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier.
Yes, I'm here. I can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
I am present and I can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Mott.
Present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
Present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
I am present and I can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Renders.
Yes, present and can hear.
Thank you. Councillor Vashon.
Present and can hear.
Thank you. And Councillor Yelland.
Present and can hear. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members. So for the record, I can confirm that we have all 10 committee members on the call and can hear. We also have on the call members Councillor Leach, who's the local ward member for application 0321/20. And in terms of the officers on the call, we have Mr. David Fairbairn, who's the council's monitoring officer, Mr. Pat Weimer, who's the head of development management, Mr. Oliver Gibbons, who's the planning case officer for the application, Miss Anna Gribble, who's going to be the gatekeeper this morning, and Miss Alex Rehag, who is the affordable housing officer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so we will now crack on with our agenda. Item 1, which is apologies for absence. There obviously aren't any. So I'll move to item 2, which is the declarations of interest for any members who are invited to declare any personal or disclosable pecuniary interest, including the nature and extent of such interest they may have in any items to be considered at this meeting. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I would disclose a personal interest as the member of the Management Board for the Devon Building Control Partnership. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Item 3, which is items requiring urgent attention, and there aren't any at this time. Item 4, the confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of October 2020. They can be found between pages 1 and 6 in your agenda pack. Is everybody happy that I sign them as a true and accurate record? If not, please could you indicate in the chat?
Chairman, yeah, I am.
Thank you. Okay. Nothing in the chat, so we will...
Hang on. It's not entering for some reason. Right.
Okay. Councillor Pearce, are you happy? You wish to comment on the minutes?
I do. Page 6, second paragraph. First line should read 3 working day response. And on the second line, it should be 5 working days. Have you got that?
Sorry, Councillor Pearce. Oh, yes, during questions.
Page 6 of the agenda, and the second paragraph.
Yes, yeah.
And it should read, it was confirmed that what's written is 3-day response, and it should be 3 working day response.
It'd be extended to 5 working days.
That's correct.
Yes, that was what was actually agreed.
Yeah.
So, Mr. White, you're happy with that to put that as an amendment, or as the adjustment for that to be initialed?
More than happy, thank you, Chair. So we'll assume that they are agreed, subject to those additions. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, and well spotted.
Thank you.
Thank you. So item 5 now, which is our planning applications, and we have before us application 0321/20/OPA, which is an outline planning consent with all matters reserved for 10 new houses in Folligate. So I'm going to hand over to Mr. Gibbons to bring his report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Yes, this application before you today is application 0321/20/OPA for land at Folligate. The proposal before you today is for an outline application with all matters reserved, except for access for 10 dwellings on the site. 6 of these dwellings would be for open market discount housing, which is for local people, and it's an affordable housing product. 4 of the houses would be for open market housing. So if I just talk you through the site here, the site's to the north of Folligate. It's in an area that's currently open countryside and agricultural use. The red line boundary here is shown with an area to the west, which is being amended through the application. That area was indicated for public open space, but because this is an outline application, all matters are reserved apart from access. So issues regarding public open space, the layout and the character of the area will be considered and central to any further application at reserved matter stage. Before I go any further, I'd just like to bring your attention to one further letter of objection that was received. This raised a concern about the landscape officer's comments and the relationship of the site with the public open space. As I just said, this application is all matters reserved apart from access, so issues regarding layout and the impact on the character and appearance of the area will be considered at a reserved matter stage. So the application site is located to the north of the village. It adjoins the village. If I just show you on the aerial photography here, you can see it's It's at the moment laid out with for agricultural use. It's got mature boundaries, and this is the indicative layout here. As I said, it's outline application stage. This plan was produced to show an indicative layout to allow for some drainage works to be done or calculations to be done to indicate that the site could be drained properly for surface water and for foul drainage. So none of this layout wouldn't be an approved plan. It would be used to show that drainage is possible. So you can see the relationship there to the south with Brandee's Cottage. That's an existing thatched cottage within Folligate, and then you can see it with the open countryside to the north and to the west. This is a picture looking down the road back towards the village. In the distance there, you can see the Brandee's Cottage, as I mentioned, the thatched cottage, and this is the mature boundary of the development. To allow access, there will be an access created through this to allow for the access into the development site. This is a photo of the site. You can see it's fairly flat and level site. You can see those mature boundaries there in the distance and in the foreground, and the site is relatively, well, it's flat really, relatively flat, very level topography. There just in the distance you can see the houses to the west of the site, which are back towards the village of Folligate and back towards the A386. And this is a sort of panoramic shot looking from the west back towards the site. So it's obviously taken in a different time of year as well, to show the context really. So if I go back to the main site plan, and I'll talk you through the policies that are considered and laid out within the report. So as I mentioned, the site is for a 10 units, 60% affordable housing. Policy TTV 27 of the Joint Local Plan sets out the criteria for this application. The policy of the local plan identifies that where development comes forward that meets local housing needs in rural areas, proposals for development on sites adjoining or very near to an existing settlement, which would otherwise not be released for this purpose, may be permitted, provided that it can be demonstrated that 1, it meets a proven need for affordable housing for local people. 2, it meets a mix of affordable housing and market housing products when necessary to be financially viable. This includes open market housing, provided it does not represent more than 40% of the homes or 40% of the land, excluding infrastructure and services. Management of the scheme will ensure that dwellings continue to meet the identified need in perpetuity, and the proposal meets the requirements of all other relevant policies within the plan. There's also specific allowance within the National Planning Policy Framework for housing in rural areas for what are known as exception sites, that where affordable housing to meet local needs is permitted, where some market housing is also allowed to help facilitate this. So in this regard, the site clearly adjoins the settlement of Folligate. Folligate's identified within policy TTV1 as a sustainable village, where some development to meet local needs is permitted. The site will provide 60% affordable housing, which will be open market discount housing, which will be available to local people in housing need, that have some connection to the local area through a local connection clause, which will be regulated through the Section 106 agreement, and they're able to purchase those properties at a 20% discount compared to the open market price. So it's a valuable local product for local people to enter the housing market. So it meets that definition. There's a affordable housing need that's been proven in this location. The affordable housing officer, Alex Rehag, is also on this call, and I may ask in a moment to outline some details about the affordable housing need here. But officers have assessed this need and consider that there is a need for affordable housing, and it will make a valuable contribution to the housing stock within this area. Turning to the second part of the policy, the application has been submitted with a viability assessment. This has tested the viability of the site and concluded that the site is viable with 60% housing, and that at 80% discount. So it has met part 2 of the policy requirement. Part 3 of the policy requirement deals with ensuring that the dwellings will be maintained in the tenure of affordable housing in perpetuity. And now this will be subject to the 106 agreement and the clauses within the 106 agreement. And that will be secured to ensure that this property is maintained in affordable housing tenure in perpetuity. And finally, policy TTB 27.4 identifies that the proposal needs to meet the required policies of the local plan as a whole. The report in front of you members details the assessment of the application against the development plan, and it has been concluded that the site will meet those policies that are relevant to the local plan. I don't know if I could just ask Alex to come in at this point and just identify some information on the affordable housing need in this locality.
Mrs. Rehag, are you there? She is showing us on the call, but not sure.
It's okay. She might be available to answer some questions later on. That's fine. I'll go back to the remaining parts of my report.
Please, thank you.
So this scheme is also, as well as providing 60% affordable housing, is providing for other infrastructure contributions. This will deliver just over £21,000 towards sport and recreation, which will be used to help facilitate the refurbishment of Folligate Village Hall. The scheme will also deliver £95,000 or just over of local education provision towards primary school in Oakhampton, which is the St James Church of England School, and Oakhampton College, and will also provide school transport, make a contribution towards school transport. And the scheme will also deliver £5,000 for the local highway authority, which will allow for the reconfiguration of the signage within the edge of the village, and also maintain and provide for the open space contributions. So there is a package of infrastructure contributions as well, which go alongside this application. The scheme also provides for open space on the site. As I mentioned at the outset of this introduction to this presentation, the site plan in front of you does indicate the open space. I think there will be some more work done on that through any reserved matters application to ensure that the open space is appropriately sited and the site has an appropriate relationship with the village as a whole. So that's just an indicative plan, but the Section 106 agreement will secure public open space, and that's part of the offer that the developer has put forward. Returning to the other elements of the scheme, the council's tree officer has reviewed the application and confirmed there's no objection on arboricultural merit. You'll see there is a condition which will require much more extensive survey work to support any reserve matters application, and also ensuring that the biodiversity net gains are delivered. Because this is an outline application, these supporting reports will be required at reserve matters stage, and they are indicated that they are detailed right at the outset so that we can fully assess the impacts at that stage of the development. The County Highway Authority has reviewed the scheme. They have supported the development subject to a series of conditions to ensure that the highway is of an adoptable standard and that satisfactory visibility and specification of the highway is delivered. In terms of design and landscape, the Council's landscape officer has reviewed the plans. They did raise a concern about the layout of the site in relationship with open space, which will be addressed. But broadly speaking, they are happy with the proposal at this stage. They have requested that further information is required at reserve matters, which will ensure that the landscaping and the soft landscaping allows the development to be integrated into the landscape, and that will be secured through a series of planning conditions. And in terms of the design and character and appearance, because this is an outline stage, reserve matters applications will detail that and ensure that the development is compatible with the character and appearance of the area and relates to the design of and character of the village. What this application is seeking to do is establish the principle really, and then allow further detailed work to be undertaken to bring a good quality development forward. Likewise, the development will also need to meet with local housing need in terms of the size and type of tenures and dwellings, as required by Policy Dev 8. This will ensure that the development's scale and size of the dwellings that come forward that enable the development to meet local housing need. And their development will also be required to meet with the national space standards to ensure that there are as appropriate amenity for future occupants, ensure that the gardens meet with the supplementary planning document that's been adopted by the council, and ensure that the parking is also in accordance with the supplementary planning document that's been adopted. Just finally, I'd like to touch on the drainage issues on the site, because this is a major scheme. Devon County Council are the lead local flood authority on this site. They've assessed the scheme. They've identified that it's not in a flood risk zone, that there is a series of conditions which require more technical information to be required to ensure that satisfactory drainage can be provided. So that will ensure that the development will have can be accommodated and not cause additional flood risk to adjoining sites, areas of the existing village. And also the development will also be required to ensure that it meets with Policy Dev 32 of the Joint Local Plan through details that we provided at reserve matter stage and secured through planning condition. So the application is recommended for delegated authority to the head of practice to approve, subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement with the heads of terms as set out within the officer report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I can see there are several people wanting to come in with questions, but I'd like to just give Ms. Rehag the opportunity to come in if there's anything she wishes to say at this stage with regard to the affordable housing needs. Thank you.
Good morning, members. I don't think there's an awful lot that I need to add to what Mr. Gibbons has said. We do have 7 people identified on the housing register. There's 3 of those that are in bands D to E and could potentially afford a discount market product, which is what this scheme is proposing. There will also be a number of people on the Help to Buy register who may also be looking for a discount market product. These are generally, much cheaper than 20% cheaper than what they would be on the open market. It's a good opportunity for young families to get onto the housing register in order to continue to live in the area that they've been brought up in, perhaps commute to, employment that might be in Hatherley, one of the neighbouring village. It's a town actually, not a village. And we're not actually getting any affordable housing provision out in that location at this moment in time. There hasn't been any new properties brought forward in Folligate for a number of years. It's all ex-local authority stock there. there. Some of those will have been sold by the right to buy. Some of those are bungalows, which predominantly meet elderly persons' needs, or larger 3-bedroom properties, which do not suit the starting family on the first road to home ownership, etc. So I don't think I've got anything further to add, Chair, but happy to take any questions if members have got anything that they want to ask me.
Lovely, thank you. We have got questions. Not sure who they'll be aimed at first. So I've got Councillor Mott, Councillor Hipsey, Councillor Moyes, Councillor Vachon. So Councillor Mott first, please.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it's an indicative plan that we've got in front of us at the moment. I do have concerns at the way that the open space has kind of been tacked on to the back there. And again, while it's only indicative, I have got concerns over access to the rest of the land in behind, which is outlined in blue, because obviously they need to go through that open space to be able to access the land, to be able to maintain hedgerows, etc. Mr. Gibbons, you also mentioned that this was an outline application with all matters reserved other than access. I'm concerned as well. I appreciate it's only indicative, but that indicative plan implies that most of that hedgerow for the length of the site is going to be removed. Is that going to be something that's going to be covered under reserved matters, or are we looking at access at the moment? Because I can't seem to see any plans regarding access at the moment.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Mott. Yes, it's an outline application. So you'll see from the officer report that there are a series of planning conditions that are seeking to require that the development comes forward with a landscaping scheme. A landscape visual impact assessment will be required under condition 9. That will require them to identify at the outset exactly which areas of the landscape are going to be preserved, which are significant, and which areas will need to be amended to accommodate the development. So it will be a condition of the application. It's the landscape there is of significance because it's on the edge of the village, and the screening and the visual amenity that mature hedgerow right the way around the site provide is of importance. So it will be conditioned, and we would seek to ensure that the trees that are significant, areas of that hedgerow which are of good quality and required to be maintained are actually secured, and that will then form part of the approved plan at reserve matters stage. So it is an important consideration, but we would be able to consider that at reserve matters stage.
There was also a query, I think, regarding the open space access through.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, yes. The open space came up at a later stage of the application, and the applicant responded to that by submitting this plan. Because it's an outline application stage, we would really want much closer detail to be given to that space, given the importance of it within for the local community and also for the placemaking objectives. So it's a bit. I don't think that's necessarily the right space for the open space. It probably needs to be more centrally located within development, so it's easier to be accessible. But it just gives a bit more flexibility for the sites to be able to accommodate the 10 houses and some open space. So it would need a much bigger, better master plan, much more consideration given at reserve matters stage to ensure that the site comes forward in a form that is acceptable. So it's really designed there to give a bit more flexibility on the site, and to ensure that there's sufficient space to accommodate the development and the open space. The exact layout will need to be considered at reserve matters. In terms of the access, yes, that area of blue is land also in the applicant's ownership. They would need to secure access to that if that's what they require, but that would also be detailed at the reserve matters stage.
Thank you. Councillor Moss, you do you have a supplemental to that at all?
No, it's if I'm honest, Chair, it's the answer I expected, given the kind of woolly nature of the question and the fact that it is purely a red line application with no indication of anything else that's going on. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions related to sustainability, and particularly with reference to SPT2. Looking at the various provisos in SPT2, it seems to tick most of the boxes. I'm concerned about paras 1 and 6, though. Paragraph 1 is the usual sort of concern about vibrant mixed-use centre and access and so on. So I'd ask Mr. Gibbons if he could just describe what sort of facilities are available in Polygate, please. I know he did say that, Oliver, you say that Polygate is a recognised sustainable village, but I would be interested to know what is going on there. The second question really relates to paragraph 6, and that's public transport. Perhaps you can give us a summary of what public transport's available for this site, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Hipsey. Yes, if I just begin in the settlement hierarchy, so that's policy TTV1. So this is policy TTV1 of the joint local plan, and this sets out the strategy, the spatial strategy, and the hierarchy of sustainable settlements within West Devon. Obviously, one is main town, so areas like Oakhampton and I think Hatherley's a main town, Tavistock. And then you've got smaller towns, so it's second in the hierarchy. And then third is sustainable villages, and this is where development that meets identified local needs and able to sustain limited services and amenities will be supported. So that's identifies Polygate and also a series of other settlements within West Devon as areas that can accommodate some growth. It's based on a sustainability appraisal which is supported at the local plan stage, and it assesses a whole sort of basket of different sustainability criteria, and it allows for some consistency to be drawn across the settlement hierarchy. I haven't got that document in front of me, but it looks at issues such as internet connectivity. It looks at the site's relationship to other settlements, public transport provision. It looks at what facilities such as shops and services that are in a community, and it allows for, as I say, consistency to be drawn across the settlements within West Devon. So it is identified as a sustainable village, and that's within the local plan. So that's the policy that sets the parameters. In terms of the facilities in Polygate, there's an existing public house crossways. There is a village hall that provides some facilities, and it's also connected on the bus. The main bus link is the A386, so it's the main bus link through that part of West Devon. I'm afraid I don't have the frequency of the services to hand, but because it is identified within as a sustainable village, it also considers issues such as the interconnectivity of the site to other areas of the district and borough, and the employment opportunities that brings. So they're the facilities it's got. That Polygate, that's how it fits in within the hierarchy of centres or settlements within the local plan. And as I said, I'm afraid I don't know the exact timetables for the buses, but I think it's got a better, because it's on that main link, the A386, it's got a better frequency for public transport than certainly other villages which aren't as well connected to the main road network. I hope that does the best to answer your queries, Councillor Hipsey.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much, Oliver.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes and Councillor Vashon.
Yes, are you saying that there's no shop or post office in the village? And are there any places for people to work? I know that there's a couple of small industries there. Hello?
Yep, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry, 1 minute. Just yes, it's in terms of the employment, it's a sustainable village, and that's the recognition within the local plan of how it fits within the hierarchy. It's it's an area that the council have identified for sustainable development, and an area that can accommodate limited growth to meet local needs. Other than the public house, I'm unaware of any other facilities that operate within that settlement. And employment-wise, there's certainly no major employment within Folligate, but it has got good connectivity to Hatherley to the north and Oakhampton to the south. So, there's more major employment opportunities within those two centres, which are our main towns and certainly higher up the settlement hierarchy than Folligate. So it's that interconnectivity between Folligate and the other settlements that are higher up the spatial hierarchy within policy TTV1.
Yes, not everybody can drive, and especially with the current situation, I think small shops are at a premium at the moment. It's a pity that there doesn't seem to be one. The other thing is, it's not this field is not in a bat route by any chance, is it?
There's no evidence that I've seen that confirms that it's not in a flight path or anything like that.
Right. Okay. And a question for Alex. Is there no requirement for any social rented housing in the area?
Councillor Moyes, yes, there is a requirement for social rent. This is not part of the proposal that we've been offered discount market sale. That is an affordable housing product by way of the NPPF, but it's not what's on the table at the moment. We did have discussions around that, but it is discount market that we've been offered.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vashon, then Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed, well, obviously this is outline planning, and the image we got on screen now of the layout of the proposed buildings obviously is going to change by quite considerably. But I do notice that obviously it's a 40-60 split between affordable housing and the open market housing. Now, I can see that under TTV 27, that the open market housing shouldn't compromise more than 40% of the land area. So I'm presuming then that the affordable housing should be at least 60% of the proposed land, and that would be a condition. I mean, it's difficult to tell from this plot of this plot here, image of the plot here, of which is the affordable housing and which is the market housing. But can you confirm that that would be a condition that we would likely to ask for, that 60% of the land would actually be the affordable housing? Thank you.
Mr. Gibbons.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Vashon. Yes, I mean, because it's an indicative plan, that consideration would be what we need to consider at reserve matter stage. So you've also got to factor in that there's open space, there'll be an open space, public open space requirement on the site, and also the access roads and those sorts of infrastructure which would need to. That serves all development, not just the affordable housing. So that's the objective of the policy, is the 40% of the land take, and that's certainly a consideration that we need to factor in at reserve matter stage, and a constraint that the developer would have to address through the submission of reserve matters. Because as you said at this stage, it's an outline application. We would need to be much more confident about the layout of the site and its impact on the character and appearance of the area. At reserve matter stage, and there'll be really important considerations for us to take into account and assess.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce, then Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you, Chairman. I have concerns that there are no socially rented properties coming forward on this. It's something that in a lot of areas now we are finding in rural areas is that there's people requesting, and it is disappointing to see that there's no provision in this proposed development. Questions for the officer, Mr. Gibbons. Good morning. I'm concerned in your report that in paragraph 7 on page 13, I'm assuming that the play space area will be 450 square meters. You know, that it's been agreed that that's what can be provided from the site now. Can you confirm that is correct, please?
There is actually a typo in your report, actually, Mr. Gibbons. It just says, simply says 450 square. So it's not clear if that's feet, inches, meters, or miles.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just having a quick check of the report. Sorry. Sorry, Councillor Pearce. Did you say page 7? Did you say
page 13?
Page 13.
Paragraph 7. Second line.
Sorry, I'm just going to have to. Unfortunately, my pages aren't numbered on my report. 1 minute. I have 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's page 13 of the agenda as opposed to page 13 of your report.
Oh, okay.
It would be the hold on.
Is that just under which section of the report? Is that under the
planning obligations?
Planning obligations, lovely, thank you.
And that element starts with policy DEL1 is the actual opening sort of sentence of that part.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just trying to find it. 1 minute. Sorry about this. Yeah, I mean, the open space requirements come from our open space sports and recreation officer, and it responds to policy of the local plan. I think it's policy 9 of the local plan, which identifies a requirement to provide open space on site. So they're requested both, sorry, it's policy Dev 4, sorry, just to confirm that. They've confirmed that there's an off-site contribution required to provide for facilities, recreation facilities at the Folligate Village Hall. So that would be just over £21,000 of a contribution towards that. But in addition to that, they've required that there's 450 square meters of natural play space. So what that is, and I can see the error now, there's the typo there on the report. Yeah. Within the open space and sport and recreation, there's just a different nature. There's different types of space and requirements within that policy. So for natural play space, it's a more of an informal space that's provided on site. So it gives people that live in that area and also on the site and also adjoining that area access to that space. So that will make a contribution towards addressing some of the shortfalls of the facilities within Folligate. So it will be valuable not just to that existing village, but also the new people, the new communities, new families, and new people that are in requirement for housing need to access that space. And that's also in addition to the 95,000, which will go towards education contributions to the county council to provide education at Campton.
Fine, thank you. That's obviously why the 450 metres that's required is, well, we've got this odd little piece tacked on the back of the site, I think. It's almost like an afterthought. The next thing is under design and landscape, second paragraph. And the paragraph starts, appropriate development in this location could be assimilated into settlement pattern of the village. Although building heights beyond 2 stories should be avoided. Given the importance, I know it's not listed, but the historic importance of Brandee's Cottage, I think that should read must be avoided. Building heights beyond 2 stories must be avoided.
Yes, I mean, as you said, the cottage there at Butterford, Butterford to the north is the Grade 2 listed building, is within a very well-defined curtilage, and there is a good area of separation between the two settlements. I mean, just going back to the presentation here, the aerial photography here, it shows to the north, you've got an area of field here. You've got Brandee's Cottage, Butterford Cottage up here. That's listed, Grade 2 listed. But then to the south, which adjoins the site, is Brandee's Cottage. Now that's a traditional thatch-built cottage, and as you said, although it isn't listed, would be a non-designated heritage asset. So of course, the form of that and the impact of this development would have on that would be a really important consideration. The design and also would need to, of this development, the layout, the siting and external appearance would need to be sort of fully justified through technical information such as the landscape visual impact assessments. Yes, I mean, I can see your point there around the scale of the development. I
mean, where you've got buildings that come forward which are 3-story would be totally out of character with this part of the village, and I think the wording of should be avoided, must be avoided, and I think that needs to be made clear at this stage before we get, if it is approved today, we need to make that clear for when reserve matters come forward.
Yes. Yeah, it would need a lot more information about it. You need to understand the context of the site and its relationship with the village. Obviously, Folygate is a traditional Devon village in its form and character, and the materials, the palette of materials, the design, the siting, would be a really important consideration for a scheme such as this. It would need to respond to that local vernacular and be compatible with the character and appearance of the area. Within Folygate, there's a variety of properties, but there isn't, as far as I was aware, especially in this sort of site, part of the village, anything that's over 2 stories. So we would have sufficient control, though, through the reserve matters to understand the impacts and understand the impact of the development and the impact it would have on the character of the village and the local vernacular. So there is safeguards in place within that. Sometimes you do find that form of 2-story properties it can be accommodated within the site. I would certainly think 2 stories would be acceptable. 3 stories, I think, would need to see much further details. But I can't see that being something we would want to really support, given the context of the area and also the fact that you're on the edge of the village. So that, there would be safeguards in the application conditions.
Okay, thank you.
I think, if you just hold fire just a second, Councillor Pearce, before you come in your next one, I think Mr. Weimer might be able to respond to some extent to that one as well.
Yeah, just very quickly, thank you, Chair.
Can't hear you.
You're very faint, Pat.
Okay, is that better?
That's better.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll be very quick. The bottom line is this is an outline application. I think we could quite easily put an informative on the decision, if approved, to say that the council would expect the scale of the dwellings to be no more than 2-story. I think it would be unreasonable to put a condition on saying it can't be, because we've got full control at reserve matters. If they come in with a 3-story dwelling on this site, for the life of me, I can't see that would get support, because it would just be completely out of character with the rest of the village. So whether there was but I don't think we should really be conditioning that, because it's completely dealt with at the reserve matter stage. But I'm quite happy that it was on as an informative, if members so wish, to say that we'd be expecting that it'd be no more than 2-story. But I'd advise against the condition, Councillor Pearce.
Okay, thank you. And my next item, just quickly, if I may, I'm concerned to note that the hedgerow and the tree orders are going to come forward in reserve matters. there were a number of mature oak trees that surround this site, and whilst I'm not saying that the present landowner would do any removal in between, if this is approved today before reserve matters come forward, it has been known that mature trees have been removed, and I would like to see TPOs put on these from today, if that's possible. I think to leave it for possible 2 years before the reserve matters come forward, we could have a completely different landscape there to what there is now. And as I say, I'm not saying the landowner would do this, but we've had cases in the past where the landscape has changed significantly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Rehag, did you want to respond to Councillor Pearce's affordable housing question?
Yeah, I've forgotten what it was now. We were talking about social rent not being provided here. There's other issues that are that come into this, Councillor Pearce, because the housing associations need to have a certain number to make it viable for them to deliver housing management processes out in Folligate. There's the properties are owned by Live West at the moment. I mean, if the applicants were open to it, we could certainly continue to have some of those discussions and see if we could get any social rented there. Because I do agree with you, that is the product that we need to deliver the most of.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Weimer, regarding TPOs, please.
Thank you. I think I'm right in saying, Councillor Pearce, that a good number, if not the majority of the trees you're concerned about, are actually off the site. So they're outside the red site. They're adjacent to, but they don't form part of the site. They're on land outside the red line. So it would be impossible in my view, through this process, to put any condition on saying don't do any works to trees that are actually outside the site area, because conditions can only relate primarily to the site area, and on top of that, conditions would only bite once the development commences. So I don't think we could do it through that. Now, if permission is granted, then I think it's not unreasonable for you to request the tree officer to have a look to see whether the trees are worthy of a tree preservation order based on the fact that permission has been granted. And yes, we can do that, but that wouldn't bite as from today, because there's a clear and defined process we'd need to go through to put that in place.
Thank you. Looking at the overhead photograph, it looks as though there's mature trees on the hedge bank or hedgerow bordering Brandee's cottage. I think it's Brandee. It's the thatched cottage anyway.
That may be the case, but even if we put a condition on saying no works to those trees, that condition can only bite once the development itself is commenced. You can't have a condition that takes effect from the date the permission is granted. It can only take effect from the date the permission is implemented, or obviously conditions where works we need to have information in prior to commencement. But it's not possible to protect trees through a condition that's from the date of the permission is granted. But we can look at, and I'll happily ask our tree officer to go out and have a look. But there is then a clear process we need to go through. It's not something we will be able to lawfully impose from from the minute this permission is granted, if it's granted.
Okay, fine. If you could ask the tree officer to go and have a look, please, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
So essentially, what you're saying is that a TPO would be a separate application, essentially, to go through the different scheme.
Well, there are conditions on the suggested by Mr. Gibbons in respect of landscaping that would relate to existing trees, but that can only relate to trees on or within the actual red line site area. Yes. And the imposition of a tree preservation order is a separate process outside of this this application. That is something we could look at. Absolutely.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you. Right. I have. Okay. Thank you. I have, just making sure I haven't missed anybody. I've got Councillor Cheadle, then Councillor Ratcliffe, Councillor Mott, Councillor Hipsey. So Councillor Cheadle, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two very quick matters of clarification, I hope. In the paperwork under representations, where it says there are 31 letters of objection, the next thing on the list is concern about the legitimacy of support letters. I'm taking that it is not the planning officer's concern about the legitimacy of support officers letters, but it's a letter about the legitimacy of some of the support letters.
Yes, that's right, Councillor Cheadle. You can see on the application, at the point of writing the report, there was 31 letters of objection. There was one additional letter, so that's 32 letters of objection received. But there was also 30 letters of support, and a number of the objections were referencing whether these were authentic letters of support from the local community or not. I mean, the local council, local planning authority are taking these letters at face value. There's a public consultation that's been undertaken through the site notices and the requirements of within our statement of community involvement, and I've just reported those letters of support based on face value of those letters.
That's what I thought. And my second one refers to the 106, the text on the 106, and again, it's just a question of clarification. There is a proposal in the sort of heads of terms that a contribution is made towards the new primary school of £40,000. The new primary school, reading the text, has already been built. So my question is it sort of usual practice to, is it usual practice for a 106 to ask for a contribution for something that's already been delivered?
Yes, I mean, thank you for that. Yeah, David might be better to answer this for me, but I'll just give the county council forward. My understanding is that the county council forward funded the primary school, but David might be able to answer that for me.
Mr. Fairbairn.
Sorry.
Yes, Chairman. My understanding is that that's usually the way the county council works, and it usually is a question of it forward funding, and therefore the contributions are paid therefore to the county council in arrears. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I didn't understand that was the way it worked, but thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. And actually, as a Oakhampton ward member, I am aware that the county did forward fund with anything coming back through Section 106 that they could get, basically, to offset it. Right, I have Councillor Ratcliffe, then Councillor Mott. Councillor Hipsey's question has been answered. So, Councillor Ratcliffe, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. My comment is for Mr. Gibbins. I noticed that 3 overhead power cables cross the current area of land marked as open space. Now, this is in the, I suppose, the northeast, yep, nearly. Come back. Well, I'll carry on. It's in the northeast corner of the proposed house H8 and the open play area. This may well create a danger to the use of the area, and it may be wise to revisit this at matter stage. And I note the statement that you made that there may be other sites available for consideration at reserve matters. So I really just flagged that one up to you as being a possible danger to games and sports in that particular area. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. Yes, it's a good point there. Obviously, with open space and recreation, you wouldn't want it to be near overhead power lines. So yeah, it'll be something we need to consider at reserve matters stage.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Mott, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question's already been asked, and it's probably left for debate anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. I did have a question myself. Mr. Gibbons, on page 17, where it talks about highways and access, and that the highways response is talking about from a safety point of view, no objections to the proposed development subject to the provision of an estate street, etc. But if go back to your picture, given that this is access as well as outline, go back to your picture of the road, if I may, please. I think that's probably it. Are you able to indicate on there where the proposed access point will be? And again, while I appreciate landscaping will come at reserved matters, what would be the position with regard potential impact on the hedge, and would that make any difference?
Sorry, yeah, just with that photograph there. Obviously, there you've got two significant trees there. You've got looks like an oak to me in the foreground, and then another one at the other end near the cottage. So, in relationship to where the indicative plans are shown, it's fairly central within that. So, within that photograph, it would almost be in the centre of that. So we'd need to make sure that the development preserves that rural character as much as possible, whilst providing a satisfactory set of visibility splays for the development. It's always difficult on edge of centre and edge of settlement locations to get that right, but that's the reason why we have conditioned a landscape visual impact assessment to ensure that proper consideration is given to exactly what needs to be removed, the minimum that needs to be removed, and to maintain that hedgerow whilst maintaining the safety and also the character and appearance of the area. So it would be something we need to consider a lot more detailed at the reserve matters stage.
Thank you, because it basically comes down to it's deliverable or not is what I was kind of thinking on that one. I think the other bit, does any other members have any other questions at all? Nope. Okie dokie. Right. We will now move to, we have some registered speakers, and our first registered speaker is Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson, are you able to just confirm that you can hear and we can hear you?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Okay, Mr. Henderson.
Sorry, Chair. I thought I was going to be asked first.
We normally have a specific order for speakers. I am aware that you do have a personal urgent appointment. I will ask Mr. Henderson if he's happy for you to go first, because obviously he's been waiting as well. Mr. Henderson, are you happy for the ward member to speak first?
Yes, that's fine. Before
you, thank you, because I know he has a personal appointment, which it wouldn't have been a problem if we hadn't had IT problems. So thank you very much. So Councillor Leach, yes, over to you. And of course you have your 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I've managed to get my appointment put to 12:30, so I'll just get it in, hopefully. Firstly, I've asked for this application to come before full council due to the concerns of local residents as well as the parish council. And the planning reasons are as follows. This proposed development, being in the open countryside, is contrary to the present policies, the joint local plan, and would be detrimental to the character of the landscape and rural environment. I would also say that this application should have actually gone to a site visit so that those who do not know the area and the issues in it could see what things are like. For instance, the road you see in front of you is a single track road, not a double track road. Principles of sustainability for rural communities. The development is also an unsustainable form of development, as Folligate did not have reasonable access to a vibrant mixed-use centre which meets daily community needs for local services and fails to mitigate the impact of this development on infrastructure. As a result, the proposed development is contrary to policies SPT 1, SPT 2, TTV 1, TTV 2, and DEL 1 of the joint local plan. The reason I've been so specific here is because this is exactly the same reasons given for turning down a similar application in Folligate only this year. Folligate does not have any services or possible employment at all. The pub is a pub, but that's it. No other services there, and the hall is basically closed up most of the time. This will mean that the reliance on having to use a motor vehicle will increase the traffic and car journeys, which is also contrary to the existing policies. If we were looking to Oakhampton, Oakhampton is already suffering with having its services depleted, whether it's doctors' surgeries, you name it, the services are going out Oakhampton very fast. So this proposed development would certainly not provide any real social, environmental or economic benefits to the area at all. The parish council will argue that with the development of the old garage site plus the amount of single houses and barn conversions, they have already provided their quota of houses, and any further houses should be only on brownfield sites only at first. The joint local plan was passed and adopted on the 26th of March 2019. The garage site planning application was agreed on the 16th of July 2019. So this site is fully part of the allotted houses for the parish and should be taken into account now. And as for the actual site, it's extremely wet and drains a large amount of water from around Folligate. The access onto the single track road serves inwardly as well as all the farms around. The site is adjacent to a listed building and a property of historic significance, and the 25 conditions shown on the report, it actually shows that the concerns of the locals and the parish council have merit, and the report should be provided before any planning permission is given, and certainly not afterwards. I believe that the designation of this village as being sustainable is certainly a mistake and should be rectified when the joint local plan is reviewed. Finally, I've only just been informed of this, and I'm not sure how true it is, but I'm told the site is also part of a local nature reserve. So I'd like to get someone to ask the officer to confirm this, if this is the case, and what effects this will have on the application. I would ask the committee to turn this application down for the reasons I've given, or at least defer the decision until all reports have been completed and brought back to this committee for debate. Just about managed that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leach. Do any members have questions for Councillor Leach? If there are questions that have arisen that come from officers, we will pick those up at the end after all the speakers. But do any members have any questions for Councillor Leach on this? Looks like not. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Leach, for your time, and fully understand if you have to leave. Completely understand. Thank you. Mr. Henderson, take two.
Thanks.
So, okay, just I'm sure you've already been briefed by the officers, but just so that you're aware, you do have 3 minutes in which to speak, make your presentation. Somebody will give you a 30-second warning as you're coming to the end, so to give you an opportunity to wrap up if you're not completed by then. Once you get to the end of the 3 minutes, I will need to ask you to stop and just wind up with your last sentence. Okay. And if members do have any questions for clarification, then that's when they will ask you those questions. Okay. So in your own time, when you're ready, then please do start your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Residents of Folligate are concerned in many ways about this application. Backed up by the joint local plan, we object to the principle of development of the site and its adverse impact on the area. The site is on the edge of the village in open countryside. Outside of the village boundary, the JLP makes it clear that the site could only be developed in specific circumstances, termed a rural exception site. This has formal definitions in the National Planning Policy Framework and the JLP, which make it very clear that rural exception sites are for current residents or those with existing connections, and also that they meet the essential local needs of the settlement that they are adjacent to. In this case, we are not aware of any current residents or others with family connections who would like to buy a house in Folligate. The application is therefore not suitable as a rural exception site, and using this land to house families from Oakhampton or other areas with their own new and affordable housing is contrary to policy TTV 27 Part 1. Folligate, I should add, has been doing its bit under the Sustainable Village designation by building houses in line with the JLP's allocation. It states that Folligate is able to accommodate 10 new dwellings between 2017 and 2034, and it already has 11 at the old garage. Folligate is not ideally situated for new developments due to its almost total lack of amenities. There is no shop, no employment, and poor transport links, such as no evening and Sunday bus services, make it difficult to attract a diverse population to the area. A similar application was turned down by West Devon Council, as Tony's just explained, because Folligate does not have reasonable access to a vibrant mixed-use centre which meets daily community needs. This proposal would be car dependent, made worse by being at the end of the village. Residents have concerns that an extra 10 to 20 cars would decrease road safety, especially at the narrow section at Crossways Junction. The proposed housing would not integrate well with the existing village. It would be a dense estate-style development behind the existing building line and would be more town-like than a linear village such as Folligate. The applicant talks of the development being screened by the hedgerow, but in reality, most of this ancient, species-rich Devon bank would be removed to make a visibility display at the estate entrance. The development would also not fit well into the surrounding landscape. The shape of the site boundary disregards the field boundaries at the rear of the site and would ironically remove an area of scrub and mature trees within the red line in order to create an open space. It is therefore contrary to policy TTV 26. The landscape specialist noted these issues and wrote in with a holding objection, but this has been inconsistently noted as no objection in the planning officer's report. It is also disappointing that the applicant has not included a wildlife report, even though West Devon's policy requires it.
Fine, Chairman. Okay, thank you, Mr. Henderson. Did you just want to finish your sentence?
Yes,
already done so.
I was just going to say that it's a wet tussocky meadow used for agriculture, which supports bats, various warblers, and feeding snipe in the winter, and that I hope that I'm confident that the committee will see the need to uphold the policies of the JLP and refuse permission for the application.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Henderson.
Thank you.
Members, does anybody have, if you just sit tight a minute, Mr. Henderson. Councillor Pearce has a question for you, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Henderson. You alluded to the fact there was no bus service in the evenings and that I think it was Sundays, you said. Can you give an indication of the frequency of the bus services during the daytime?
I can't say for sure. It's been a little while since I last took the bus. I took it to Exeter last. It was a long time. They are relatively regular through the day in so much as there's sometimes two at once and then you get a gap for a couple of hours. So I think there's maybe in the week two at 7 in the morning and then one at 9 or something like that. They then run through the day until about 6:45, I think, is the last that you can come home in the evening from Oakhampton.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else got any questions for Mr. Henderson? No? Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Henderson. Of course, you're welcome to stay for the remainder until we come to a decision on the application. We would next have had registered to speak as the applicant, who is Mrs. Seal. I know for personal reasons she's not been able to attend, but has sent a statement through which Mr. White will read out. And what I did forget to say right at the start, but I should have done, is while it's not a personal interest, I do actually know Mrs. Seal, but I haven't had a conversation with her for quite a long time, and certainly not about this planning application, but just in the interest of transparency, just to say that I do actually know her. Mr. White, are you able to read the statement out, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Please accept our apologies for not being in attendance. My husband is ill and has been in and out of hospital. We have owned the land for 15 years, and since it has become unused, we have hoped that this plot can accommodate much needed local housing. We live and work in the community and see firsthand that there is a growing number of families for whom this scheme would be the opportunity to get onto the housing ladder. The Housing Needs Officer has confirmed that there is demand due to a shortfall in affordable housing in the area. The 6 affordable homes would be sold with a significant reduction for local families. Our first application at the site last year was for just 5 houses, and it was only when the planning department explained that there was this significant shortage in affordable properties that we responded with a larger revised scheme as they requested. Every request that the local authority has made, we have agreed to, from the number of houses to the mix, the Section 106 agreement, including a substantial sum in contributions, and more recently an additional area as an open play space. The site adjoins the village, and there has been clear support for the scheme. Supporters of the proposal appreciate that housing growth needs to be in line with population growth to maintain balance. The scheme complies with policy TTV 27 and responds to local housing need as set out by the Housing Needs Officer. After the significant contributions that the Section 106 demands, there will hopefully still be some small financial return for us, but the thrust of the proposal from our point of view is to benefit those in the local community who need this housing. Next page, Chair. Apologies that that's the end. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. White. Obviously, Mrs. Seal isn't here, so we can't raise any questions to her. So our next speaker is the parish councillor. That's Councillor Philip Piddington. Councillor Piddington, are you able to just confirm that you can hear us and we can hear you?
I can hear you clearly, thank you.
Thank you, and we can hear you as well. And I'm sure you heard me say just now, but I will repeat it just in case you didn't, that you will have 3 minutes in which to bring your presentation. And Mrs. Gribble will give you a 30-second warning as you get to near to the end of your 3 minutes, so you know that it's time to start to wrap up. And I will obviously need to finish you at the end of your 3-minute period. And members will have an opportunity just to ask you questions if they wish to for clarity. Okay. So when you're ready in your own time, please do make a start. Thank you.
Thank you. So the Parish Council unanimously consider the development totally unsuitable for the parish and respectively request the Planning Committee to reject this development in full, sending a clear message to all potential developers that any future development in the parish should be in line with the Parish Council's clear advice to the Planning Department. Consistently over the past 20 years, the Parish Council have recommended that any future development should be encouraged on 4 recognised brownfield sites and natural infill within the main village. We are pleased to say that the first of these, the old garage site, is nearing completion and providing, along with 10 or more barn conversions and farmsteads that have been approved and developed over the past 7 years, in need with the local community's needs and expectations. For future needs, there are a handful of social housing needs for low-income local people who would not be able to afford any of the proposed dwellings, even with the discount. The following concerns arise with the particular proposal. It is outside the recognised development plan and in open countryside, which is not encouraged under the current planning guidance. The size and scale is excessive for the village. The types of houses being developed will not be in line with what low-income people can afford. Given the ground conditions, we estimate that the properties that would be retained for local people would cost at least £200,000, even with a 20% discount, that would not be affordable to the people who have the needs. The parish needs low-cost affordable housing for a few people, and that can be achieved by developing brownfield sites, should the planning committee give a clear message to any future developers that these should be preferred. The traffic between Folligate and Inwardley is already excessive on this single track road. The site encroaches on a few listed properties within the parish, and there is clear conditions associated with the drainage, which we believe would cause an issue. There's a lack of infrastructure, and the parish is not recognised by the parish council as a sustainable community. It does not have sufficient internal infrastructure and resource. And if you come back to what's been discussed earlier, it talks about affordable housing. That isn't in the application as I read it. It talks about discounted housing prices for local people. But what happens when the people in need can't afford to buy them?
Thank you,
So
Mr.
what happens with
Piddington.
these houses?
Mr.
Do they
Piddington, could I ask you just to wrap up, please, if you would, because your time is up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Mr. Piddington? I would just ask one, Mr. Piddington, if I may, that I note in the officer's report, it does say that the parish council doesn't have a neighbourhood plan. While it's perhaps not necessarily relevant to this particular application at this particular time, but is the parish council thinking about getting one set up?
Well, I think that's inaccurate. The parish council has consistently given its view on what should be developed within the parish, and it should be for local needs, and it should be in the brownfield sites. And that has been consistent for nearly 20 years now. So if the local planning office choose to ignore that, then I don't know what we should do. I mean, we'd be more than happy to resubmit if that would be helpful, but it will just be a repeat of what we have traditionally submitted. One of those sites has now been developed and has met all of the short-term needs, with the exception of people on low income.
Okay,
and
lovely.
That should be the focus.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Hipsey.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for that summary. You flagged up something I think I have concern about, and that is the road, which would give access to this development. Mr. Piddington, you described it as a single track road. Clearly, the important part of it would be between the development and the village itself. I don't know whether we could have the original plan up, please. Do we have there was the very first map we had, which shows the village. Thank you. So by my estimation, that must be probably about 300 or 400 metres. Could you just give us an idea of just how, given another, well, let's say 10 houses, probably another 15, 20, maybe 20 cars, just how much of a problem there might be between the development and the village itself?
Well, there's already congestion during the early hours when people, if we're outside of COVID, are travelling to work, because there are very few jobs and no expected increase in employment in the village. So people have to travel. And early in the morning, there is already congestion starting from Brandee's Cottage and coming up through into the village and the crossways in. So it's all single track, basically. And you've got people's gardens adjoining it. So there's no opportunity to expand and widen. So it is a major issue at the beginning of the day and in the evening for local people. And this wouldn't be meeting the needs of local people. This would just be ultimately expanding for new people to come in. And as I said earlier, we don't believe the handful of people who do need accommodation would be able to afford this. Now, I think it was mentioned by other councillors early. What we really need is proper, low-cost, affordable housing.
So I think you've moved on from my question.
Yeah, Mr. Piddington, I just asked you just to answer the question. Thank you very much indeed,
sorry.
which I think you have covered.
Chair, may I just ask one?
Did you have another question? Okay, yeah, sure.
One supplementary to that, if I may, Chair. If I can ask Mr. Piddington whether there are passing places in that little stretch between the development and the proposed development and the main road, and do people park their cars outside the existing properties, please?
So in terms of from Brandee's Cottage up to the junction, the only way of passing is to pull into somebody else's drive, which is what people do, just to facilitate it so that people don't queue back the roads. If you go up through the village, as you turn the corner and go up towards the crossways, there are some vehicles that are parked outside of people's property because it is the only parking they've got, which further restricts the road. So what you have to do is, people have to back up regularly to get access.
Thank you. That answers my question very nicely. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Cheadle?
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Piddington, thanks very much for your presentation. I've got a copy of the JLP in front of me. It says that Folligate is a village able to accommodate around 10 dwellings. That's in the period of 2014 to 2034. I think I heard you saying that the redevelopment of the old garage had already provided 11 properties. Is that correct?
I think it was Mr. Henderson that used that number, but yeah, I believe it's 10 or 11.
And have they been built since 2014?
Yes, they have. In fact, they're just on the market now, and I think half of them are already constructed, and some of those have been sold. But again, it's to people coming into the village, not for local people.
Okay, but I mean, they have been built within the time frame of the JLP. That's the point I'm making.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Piddington, for your time, or Councillor Piddington, I apologise, for your time. And as I said to everybody else, you are more than welcome, of course, to stay in the meeting while we enter full debate on this one and move things forward until we get to our decision. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, members, I actually do have a couple of questions that have arisen out of the presentations, which is specifically for the officers. One of which is Councillor Leach referred to the potential for the area to be a designated local nature reserve. Does somebody want to pick this one up, Mr. Gibbons, possibly?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I confirm it's not a nature reserve. I reviewed the mapping, and it's not a local nature reserve at the site.
Okay, your sound wasn't terribly good. Your microphone, I think, is possibly up.
Sorry, sorry about that.
That's better. Could you repeat that, please?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Councillor Yelland. Yes, I confirm the site isn't a local nature reserve. It's not identified as a local nature reserve. The site.
Okay, thank you. And second question, which I think is probably to Mrs. Rehag, and I realise we can only look at the application that's within the red line. However, reference is being made to the other development in the village regarding the garage site, which is currently in the process of being built out. And given the housing numbers that we are talking about here, are you able to give any comment as to whether that that development is essentially going to be meeting anything to do with low-cost housing, affordable housing, or any form of social housing, please?
Thank you, Chair. No, the old garage site didn't provide any affordable housing on site. It wasn't considered viable to do so. We've also got to be aware that a lot of brownfield sites do not hit the threshold for affordable housing. Especially if there's no neighbourhood plan in place, which requires a lesser number than 5 properties to then provide your affordable housing on site. So we're not getting anything out of those out of those developments coming forward, especially with the bond conversions, etc. They're not considered an affordable housing product. Take on board some of the comments about the discount market sales. There is work that we can continue to do to see if we can get any of those properties provided as social rent, or social rent. But yeah, that can be work that could be done in the future should the application be approved. But that's for negotiation for me to do. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to pick up on something that was said in the applicant's letter that was read out to us by Mr. White. Can you confirm, Mrs. Rehag, that the original application was for, or the intended application was for 5 houses, and in consultation with yourself or someone from housing, that the number expanded to 10? Is that correct?
That is incorrect. That application wasn't encouraged by myself to come in for 10 units to meet an affordable housing need.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And if I may have a supplementary, I mean, there's no guarantee that in your negotiations that you will get any socially rented housing on this site, is there?
There isn't any guarantees. It's down to who's got which housing associations have got available cash at that time, and whether they can justify the management for that location depending on their other stock. So that would not be it's not a definite that we would be able to do that. Homes England funding is changing all the time. We've just had a new programme out, so it would be back to the drawing board, really, starting from scratch with the LPs that we work with locally.
Well, that's what I'm thinking about. I mean, would it be okay for you to give an indication of how many socially rented houses you think is needed in Folligate? Because obviously the parish council speaker, gave an indication that that's what was needed in Folligate, and I have to say I do have concerns about the affordability of even with a 20% discount. Could you give an indication of how many, rented houses you think would be required in Folligate? Because I'm wondering, with the changes that Homes England are bringing in, whether it's something we should be looking at.
I would be more comfortable saying that there's seven households that are on our housing register. So they've all registered for rented accommodation. They are predominantly in bands B to D, so that's medium to high level. Affordable housing. So there is a need for affordable housing within that location, and like I've said, I would do as much as I could to try to ensure that we got some social rent rather than a discount market product, but that also needs to be viable for somebody, because there is also going to be those people that have registered with Help to Buy who would want a shared ownership or a discount market sale property, but local connection is not always taken into consideration for that. So just to point that bit out as well. Okay.
Okay, Alex, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Weimer.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just come in on a couple of points. Firstly, I think I need to clarify the position in the access question. I've gone back through the documents, and I'm sure Mr. Gibbons will correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I can see, this is an outline application with everything reserved, including access. So we're just talking about an indicative plan here, and not, and if approved, it wouldn't fix the point of the access to that central position. As a number of people have said, it is quite clear, however, that if approved, an access will be coming off that road, and the access itself and a visibility display to highway standards would have to be provided, and inevitably that would have an impact on that existing roadside hedge. That was my first point. So access is reserved, not part of the outline. And the second point is I understand Councillor Pearce's question to Mrs. Rehag, but I have to point out that we're considering the application that's in front of us, and what's in front of us is for the affordable products to be discount sale. So we do need to focus on what's in front of us. Although I absolutely understand the reasoning for the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying the access, because I did read it slightly differently, that it did include, but yeah, I can see actually reading it a second time that the access and maintenance is part of Section 106. Any other questions from anybody at all, please? Nope, okie dokie. In which case I will move the recommendation as laid out on page 8, which is, hold on, just let me get it a minute, which is to delegate to the head of practice to approve, subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement, with the following heads of terms as outlined on page 8. Could I have a seconder for that, please?
Happy to second, Chairman. Councillor Pearce here.
Thank you. Members, we are now in debate. If anybody wishes to speak, then please could you indicate in the chat box. Thank you. As a start of a 10, we have Councillor Pearce, followed by Councillor Hipsey.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have concerns about this application. There's a number of things that have come forward in this presentation by both the planning officer and the representatives of the parish and the objectors. I'm wondering whether we should be okaying something which the parish don't appear to want or need, in their view. It's a very difficult one. I mean, it's in the open countryside. It's certainly a very narrow road, and I know that junction by the Crossways Inn is a very dangerous junction. Going back a few years ago, the Crossways, although it was quite away from home, it was one of my locals, and it's quite a dangerous junction. Even though highways don't have a problem with the proposed development. And I do have concerns about the affordability of the discounted houses, and as we're moving into what could be a major recession, in spite of what central government have done in support in the coronavirus pandemic, I do really have concerns that we don't have any socially rented accommodation in the mix. It's quite disappointing. It really is. And I see on the photographs, I mean, I thought I was incorrect when I said about the mature trees on the hedgerows, but there certainly is from the photographs we've seen. And I do have a strong concern. So I hope the head of planning will ask the tree officer to come out and have a look if this application is approved today. I'm very uneasy about it. I would have felt happier supporting the application had there been some element of socially rented housing, which I think is more in keeping for a rural area such as this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey, then Councillor Cheadle.
Thanks, Chair. I completely agree with Councillor Pearce's summing up of the situation. I also feel rather uneasy about it. To me, it seems to be very much a balance between the provisos in TTV 26 about sustainable developments, particularly paragraph 1, and Follygate's apparent status under TTV 1, which I find a bit surprising, because it sounds to me, I don't know Folligate, but it sounds to me as if Folligate doesn't have a great deal to offer in terms of facilities. We're 5.6, I think, miles by road from Oakhampton, which it's a fair distance to access things like shops and so on and so forth. I think the clincher for me is the single track road, which really worries me. I'm really surprised that highways didn't have anything to say about this, because I think that single track road could be a real snarl up at certain times of the day, as pointed out by the parish council. So my inclination is to refuse this, but I'm still open to persuasion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cheadle, then Councillor Renders and Councillor Mott. So Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Leach for picking this particular application, where we are using the same policy in the joint local plan, both as supportive and negative, depending on which way you read it. My mind, I think, is focused on the joint local plan and its estimation that this village should be able to support 10 houses over the duration of the joint local plan, and they've already provided 11. I think it's pretty unreasonable to then expect the community to shoulder 100% increase on what's already been agreed in the joint local plan. So I will not be supporting this application.
Thank you, Councillor Cheadle. Councillor Renders.
I think Councillor Cheadle just taken away the last bit of what I was about to say, actually. So most of what I was going to say has been covered on this. I am very uncomfortable with this, and I think I will be voting against it. But all that I wanted to say has actually been said, so I won't repeat it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mott, then Councillor Crozier.
Thank you, Chair. The other members have already expressed my concerns very succinctly, and also the fact that we did turn down an application for, admittedly, for 23 in a different location, but within the same village less than 12 months ago. I appreciate that still going before appeal, so that decision has yet to be decided. Maybe that would have helped our decision if we'd known that decision prior to this meeting. However, given the concerns expressed by everybody and the location of this, I don't feel that I can support this application as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier, and then I know Mr. Weimer wants to comment, but just let Councillor Crozier come in first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to differ a little bit from some of the comments already made, particularly about highways. When you look at this plan and look at it online, look at the Google Earth, there are a lot of roads in Devon, narrower than this road, that support substantially more traffic than this development and the houses within that road network would actually produce. So, and they always manage. When you look at the long view, looking back towards the site, that looks quite a reasonable road, and it may be single track, but I'm sure you can pass in specific points, as we do on many Devon lanes. That is my summing up of the transport issues. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Couldn't get my mouse across. Mr. Weimer, did you want to comment, please?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. There's a couple of points. Firstly, that there is in officers' view, there is a fundamental difference between this application and the one that was previously refused. It's gone, I believe, going to appeal or gone to appeal. In that, in our view, the other application simply did not meet the policies within the requirements within TTV7, because it didn't demonstrate that it was meeting affordable. I don't believe it was 60%. So I think there are distinct differences. The only other point I was going to say at the moment is that, and members on the committee will have heard me say this on more than one occasion, I would really urge caution to going forward with a reason for refusal on highways grounds when the highways officer has got no objections to the scheme, because it is incredibly difficult for us to defend that at an appeal if the highways officer says it's acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vashon.
Thank you, Chair. I think listening to all the other comments by the other councillors, I think I agree with a lot of the sentiment that's being said there. However, I think one of the problems we have with small villages is the lifeblood of small villages are the younger people who actually need the housing within these villages to sustain those villages and the life within them. in light that there is no other affordable housing proposals in the village, I see that this may be a way forward for those people who are looking for housing and can't afford it. This is the only access they actually have at present. So I can understand all the other reasons for refusing this, but I think the overriding facility of affordable housing is swaying me to actually accept this and recommend and accept the recommendation of the officers in this case. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any more members? If not, it looks like then we will need to be taking this to the vote. So I will be asking, Mr. White will go through everybody's name one at a time, and you just please confirm that you were present and heard the whole of the, been present for the whole of the application, and then to vote for, against, or abstain. And the officer's recommendation, of course, to remind you, is to delegate to head of practice to approve, subject to the completion of section 106 with the heads of terms as laid out in the agenda papers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So, in alphabetical order, members, Councillor Cheadle.
Hello, I was here for all the debate and heard everything, and I do not support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Crozier.
I was here throughout the debate and the application, and I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
I was here throughout and heard everything, and I do not support the application.
Thank you. Councillor Mott.
Thank you. I was here throughout the presentation, and I reluctantly do not support the application.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
I had the whole debate and against support.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
I heard the whole of the presentation and the discussions, and I cannot support the application.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
I was present for the duration of the debate, and I cannot support this particular application.
Thank you. Councillor Renders.
The same. I was present throughout, heard everything, and I'm not going to change my mind. I'm still against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vachon.
Present throughout, and I support the application.
Thank you. And Councillor Yelland.
Present throughout, and I vote against.
Thank you, members. That therefore is 2 votes in favour with 8 against, and the recommendation is therefore declared lost. Thank you, members.
Okay, thank you. So as Mr. White said, that is lost. So our next move now is to produce material planning reasons, which will need to be proposed, seconded and voted on. So any member wish to put forward material planning reasons, please. Hang on, sorry, things are popping up all over the place here. Right, Councillor Mott, you came up first.
Thank you, Chair. I am happy to propose that we refuse permission based on that this is an unsustainable form of development, as Folligate does not have reasonable access to a vibrant mixed-use centre which meets daily community needs for local services and fails to. Sorry, yeah, that's enough, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
Chair, sorry, that was Councillor Mott's proposal. Reason was a bit too quick for me to note that all down.
Yeah.
Could she possibly repeat
Yes,
that?
I didn't get any further than unsustainable form of development.
Yes,
either. Councillor Mott, are you able to put your thinking down, and we'll get people's views? Yes.
My apologies, Mr. Weimer. Do you have your fingers flexed enough now?
They were flexed before, but they just weren't quick enough, I'm afraid.
So unsustainable form of development as Folligate does not have reasonable access to a vibrant mixed-use centre which meets daily community needs for local services.
Okay, Mr. Weimer, did you get that?
Sorry, I didn't realise I put on it. Yes, I did get that.
You're lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
I have some other people who are coming forward for comments, so to see if we needed to add any more meat to this particular bone. Councillor Hipsey?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just wondered if it was appropriate to quote policy JLP policy TTV 26 paragraph 1, and I can't see any of the sub paragraphs there that would be appropriate to make this an exception.
Okay, Councillor Cheadle?
Well, I agree with what's already been said, but I would add that I see no justification for doubling the number of houses proposed in the joint local plan.
Okay, and Councillor Pearce?
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to add to Councillor Mott's piece that without the use of the motor vehicle to access services, because I think we need to make it clear that people are going to be tied to the motor vehicle, and it goes against our green policies. I forgot to mention that in debate. Increasing the use of motor car to go to Oakhampton or Hatherley, is going against our green commitments. And I would also say that development in this very rural location on the edge of the village, the detrimental impact of development on this rural part of the village far outweighs the benefits of the housing being brought forward.
Chair, can I be very rude, interrupt and ask Councillor Pearce a question?
Sure.
Yes, go. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, go on.
Yeah. Councillor Pearce, when you say detrimental impact, could you be a little bit more? Could you elaborate a little bit in terms of what detrimental? Are we talking about character or visual impact? I just wasn't sure what you meant by detrimental impact on the
rural character of that area of the village.
So it's a built development in an unbuilt area.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah. Distinctiveness.
That's right. Are you happy with what? And I mean, obviously, Councillor Mott will have to agree. But are you happy with my add-on at the end of her paragraph, Mr. Weimer?
I think it's a separate issue. So right. I think if we're looking at that, I think it should be two different reasons for refusal. Because I think the Councillor Mott suggested reason is around effectively the principle of residential development, full stop. Right. Whereas you're looking at, even if the principle's okay, this is an unacceptable site because of the impact it has on the rural character of the area.
Yeah.
So I think they're two separate. I think they're two separate things.
Right. Okay.
So I'm
happy
sorry,
with that.
Mr. Weimer, can I just come in on that? I think Councillor Pearce is alluding to the bit about motor vehicles on the back end of Councillor Mott's.
That's right. Yeah.
So what Councillor Pearce has said is that where Councillor Mott's proposal says community leads for local services, Councillor Pearce is suggesting that's added on the end is without the use of motor vehicles to access services.
Sorry, I understood that. I misunderstood the question. I mean, my suggestion is going to be that that when members vote on this sort of headline reasons for refusal, that my suggestion would be that it's delegated to the head of DM for delegate refusal of the head of DM with the final wording of the reasons for refusal and the policies to be attached to that to be agreed by chairman, vice chairman, proposer and seconder, rather than getting absolutely 100% precise reasons for refusal at this meeting, which is always very difficult to do it on the spot without missing a particular policy. So I think if we can get the headlines and get the main issues all of the issues down, and then officers can put put a little bit of time and thought to that and come back to, I say, the chair, vice chair, proposer and seconder to get the final reasons for refusal signed off through the delegated process.
Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. So essentially we have sort of several reasons that are coming forward. We will look at putting them all into one, in the sense of getting that proposed and seconded, and then the head of planning will then put that into the relevant policy. Mr. Fairbairn, did you wish to comment?
Yes, Chairman. In a way, I was going to ask Councillor Pearce the very same question that Mr. Weimer asked him about what did he mean by detrimental impact, but I think that's now been sorted. And I was actually also going to say, can we identify the planning policies that we are relying on to support these reasons for refusal? That said, I've heard what Mr. Weimer said about the decision being delegated to him in consultation with members to come up with the final wording of the condition, the reasons for refusal, and I'm quite happy with that. So yeah, I got slightly overtaken by events, but that's essentially, I think I'm happy with the way we're going forward, providing it's the head of practice in consultation with, and that'll be fine. Thank you. Lovely.
So I think it's probably Mr. White. Are you able to just read out what we have got, where we are, and then we can take that back to Councillor Mott, who's the initial proposer, and to get a seconder on it?
Thank you. I think the direction of travel, Chair, is to, in effect, we're seeking a proposal to delegate refusal to the head of development management in consultation with the chair of committee, vice chair committee, and the proposer and seconder of the recommendation to approve the final wording. So there's that element to it. But Councillor Mott's initial thoughts were, in effect, her reasons were, it's constituting an unsustainable form of development, as Folligate does not have reasonable access to a vibrant mixed-use centre which meets the daily community needs for local services. And then Councillor Pearce, his suggestion was to put on the end, without the use of a motor vehicle to access services.
Thank you. We've also got about justification for doubling of houses proposed in the JLP.
That's correct, Chair. That's Councillor Cheadle. No justification was doubling of the number of houses as proposed in the joint local plan. And we also got Councillor Hipsey's point about TTV policy TTV 26, specifically paragraph 1. And then Councillor Pearce had the additional point about, which we've just discussed, about the detrimental impact on the rural character.
Okay, so Councillor Mott, are you happy with that as the full proposal?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, is a seconder for that, please?
Happy to second, Chairman. Councillor Pearce.
Mr. Weimer, you want to come in?
Apologies, Chairman. Yes, please. Before members go to the vote, there's just one point I'd like to ask members to consider, and what I'm specifically thinking about is, okay, if assuming that the application is refused, and assuming that the applicant chooses to go to appeal, I would like members to consider how the council defend a case put forward that, notwithstanding the issues that you've raised, the application is entirely compliant with policy TTV 27, which then potentially sets aside some of those issues other than the detrimental impact on the rural character, because but it certainly would set aside in my view, the unsustainable form of development, because TTV 27 says proposals for residential development on or adjoining sites or on or near to an existing settlement, doesn't elaborate more, but just says settlement, are acceptable if it meets a proven need for affordable housing for local people. I think there needs to be a little bit of thought given to your decision in addressing that particular policy before we go to a vote.
Councillor Hipsey has a question, but actually just before you dive in, Councillor Hipsey, I just wanted to clarify myself. Affordable housing, is that very specific, or can that include things like social housing, affordable market housing, you know, the low cost, you know, where people can get help to buy? Is it very specific that it has to be discounted market housing, or can it be along the grounds of social housing?
The policy says, I'll read it all out for clarity. So proposals for residential development on sites adjoining or very near to an existing settlement, which would not otherwise be released for this purpose, may be permitted, provided it can be demonstrated that, 1, it meets a proven need for affordable housing for local people. 2, it includes a mix of affordable and market housing products where necessary to be financially viable. This includes open market housing, provided it does not represent more than 40% of the homes or 40% of the lands take, excluding infrastructure and services. 3, management of the scheme will ensure that the dwellings continue to meet the identified need in perpetuity. And 4, the proposal meets the requirement of all other relevant policies in the plan. Now, clearly, the element put forward by Councillor Pearce in terms of detrimental impact on the rural character would potentially relate to part 4. But given some of the debate, I wonder whether members would like to have a discussion around whether you feel it meets a proven need for affordable housing for local people, because that's your debate went in that direction, but hasn't gone in that direction when you've looked for reasons for refusal.
Okay, right, thank you. Councillor Hipsey, you had a question?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'm having difficulty reading from one policy to another. But as Mr. Wyman says, TTV 27, the important point there to me is para 4. The proposal meets the requirement of all other relevant policies of the plan. So therefore, it must meet the requirements of policy TTV 26. Paragraph 1 says, isolated development in the countryside will be avoided and only permitted in exceptional circumstances, such as where it would, and then there are 5 provisos there. I would ask Mr. Weimer perhaps to tell me which of those 5 would apply.
The courts are quite clear, Councillor. This absolutely would not be deemed to be isolated development in the countryside. That term has been through appeals and courts recently, and it's held that isolated means the general dictionary definition of that is on its own. So if you've got a site that's next to a village, it would not be deemed to be isolated.
This is the Braintree.
It absolutely is, and I think my point is that TTV 27 was specifically put in the plan to allow for the provision of affordable housing for local people on sites that would not normally get permission. It clearly says that it's near to an existing settlement, would not otherwise be released for this purpose. So with respect, I would disagree with you that to comply with TTV 27, it has to then comply with all of the other housing principle policies, because if it complied with those, it couldn't be described as a site that would not otherwise be released. Where I think point 4 refers to in terms of other relevant policies is things like impact highways, impact on the countryside, if it's potentially A and B and designated landscapes. I think it's those sorts of policies rather than the specific housing policies, because if it had to comply with the other specific housing policies, you couldn't say it would not otherwise be released. I've probably not explained that well, but hopefully I can.
No, sorry, I accept that, and I must admit I had forgotten or neglected the Braintree ruling about isolated development, and I take your point about TTV 26. Thanks.
Okay, sorry, I've been reading rather than trying to read and listen rather than picking up on who is waiting. So I've got Councillor Pearce and Councillor Cheadle.
Mr. Weimer, I think we need to bring in the lack of socially rented housing within the proposed development, which has been identified both by the housing officer and the parish council representative as being a requirement for the village. Can that be something that we can highlight?
I think it is, and I think it's something that could be added to Councillor Mott's original proposal, insofar as the proposal doesn't meet a proven need, or the application as to the wording to the effect of the proposal as submitted does not meet a proven need for affordable housing for local people, and represents an unsustainable form of development that would be reliant on the private motor vehicle, and then carry on with the rest of the comments, or sorry, the rest of the proposal that Councillor Mott put forward, and that would then pick up the area with the area of TTV 27. I do need to put on record, however, that my personal professional view is aligned with the officer's recommendation. So I just need to clarify that.
Yeah, well, that's fine. But I think, you know, my view is that we have to take into account the parish council representatives' comments that there is a requirement for socially rented housing, which is being substantiated by our own housing officer. And I feel, therefore, that can be a reason for refusal of this application as it stands at the moment.
And that's entirely what that you and your colleagues on the committee will be voting for in a second, I suspect.
Mr. Wyman, I was just looking at Dev 9, which is about meeting the local housing need, and talking about affordable housing could include social and affordable rent. So because this particular application isn't meeting that, so I think a lot of the concerns are from members from what I was hearing during the vote was during the debate would be that perhaps because it's not social housing, rather than it was affordable, which broadly speaking, as to whether, while it's affordable in planning terms, as to whether it's affordable in real terms for local residents.
I think. Sorry, Chair. I think I'm just looking at Dev 9 myself. I think where we're going to have difficulties, and there's a number of authorities who had difficulties in the past with this, is that the government clearly sets out that in their view, and so in the view of national policy, things like starter homes, discount market at 20%, and various other products are all deemed to be affordable. So I do not think we could say under a Dev 9 element that because it says affordable housing could include, but it doesn't say must include.
Must include.
Whereas I believe TTV 27 is more prescriptive, because what it's effectively saying is we will grant permission on sites that wouldn't normally get planning permission on the basis that they are an exception to policy because they are providing housing that meets a proven need for affordable housing for local people. And I believe what members are saying is that the need for affordable housing for local people in Folligate isn't discount market, but is a combination of potentially that, but other products.
Yeah.
So therefore, the application in front of us at the moment doesn't comply with TTV 27. I absolutely accept. I'm paraphrasing and putting words in members' mouths, but that's my interpretation of what you've been saying. Obviously, officers have a different view, but that's we need to. But I think that's pretty much what you've been saying.
That's I think a fair interpretation of what
Right.
members have been saying during the debate. To be honest, is that was part of the concern. I got Councillor Cheadle and Councillor Vendors.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to suggest that it might be worth referencing TTV 25, development in sustainable villages, because the final paragraph of that says that where sustainable villages without a neighbourhood plan, which I believe Folligate meets that, we would support propositions that respond positively to the indicative housing figures set out in figure 5.8. Well, the indicative housing figures for Folligate is 10, and they've already built 11.
Okay. Councillor Vendors.
I'm not going to follow you again, Rick. That was that was the very point I got here. I've written down there already the numbers being 10. They've already built 11. I wasn't sure if that could be included in there some way. And also the fact that I was back to what Terry made earlier on about the parish council and having to listen to them and the needs of the local people. The fact that it's not sustainable, there are no local businesses, and also a point that I think it was the guy from the parish council made earlier on about the affordability of these, even at a discounted price, would still be not normally be affordable. My alarm's going off. So that was my point anyway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right. Any further? I think we proposed and seconded, didn't we? Any further debate, members? Okay, so we have the details before us, and just to check with the proposer and the seconder, you're happy to include the issues as described in TTV 27, TTV 25?
Absolutely, thank you, and thank you, Pat, for managing to tease that wording out of our debate.
Yeah, Councillor Pearce, I think you were the seconder for that. You happy with that?
Yes, I am, Chairman.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just jump in before we do that? I think Mr. Weimer's explained why. Oh, yes, TTV 27 we're going to include, aren't we? But not TTV 26. Yeah, thank you.
No, it's TTV 25, which talks, and I think this does go to demonstrate the importance of areas having a neighbourhood plan, which obviously would give a lot more weight and make it easier.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that. It was my fault.
Okay, members, so we will now take this to the vote. Mr. White, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Chair and members. So just to reiterate, and for the record, we are voting on a recommendation which has been seconded to delegate refusal to the head of development management in consultation with the chair, which is yourself, the vice chair, Councillor Pearce, the proposer of the motion, which is Councillor Mott, and the seconder, which was already Councillor Pearce. So there'll be 3 members in the delegation process as well to agree the final wording of the reason for refusal. Thank you, members. Councillor Cheadle.
I'm happy with that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Crozier.
I'm happy with that.
Thank you. Councillor Hipsey.
Yes, I approve of that. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Mott.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Moyes.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Also 4.
Thank you. Councillor Renders.
Yes, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Vashon.
I'll abstain.
Thank you. And Councillor Yelland.
4.
Thank you, members. That's therefore 9 votes in favour with 1 abstention, and that recommendation is therefore declared carried. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm just minded of the time. It's 1:15, and I know some of us have been sort of on our screens since about 8:30 this morning. Our next item we would normally have is the licensing policy. I think we will call for maybe a half-hour recess to give everybody opportunity to rest your eyes, grab yourselves a sandwich and a cup of coffee. So if we can reconvene here at 1:45, please. If that's okay with everybody.
Thank you, Chairman.
And probably might be an idea to stay logged in, having said that, just in case you lose your connection. But that was just...
Chair, can I just ask what is going to happen to Mr. Fairbairn's statement, which was due at 12:30?
Yes, that will still go ahead. I was thinking about putting it forward, but I've noticed that members who probably still on YouTube, I would imagine, haven't come into the meeting yet. So preferably it would make sense if we carried on through the agenda, and we are running about, just trying to think, this would have been at 12:30. So hopefully we could be ready for that by 2:30. Hopefully we've got a all member briefing anyway at 3 o'clock, but do you think, Mr. Fairbairn, if you're there, do you think we'll be ready to go for 2:30 on this one?
Yeah, I'm here as long as you need me.
Right, brilliant. Depends on members how long you take on item 6, 7, 8, and 9.
It does indeed.
Okay, so yes. All right. That's fine. We're not quite ready yet. We've got another couple of minutes. I just wanted to just double check. Lovely. Thank you very much. And welcome back to Development Management and Licensing on the 24th of November, where we will be completing the rest of our agenda. I'm going to ask Mr. White, please, if he would just take the roll call to confirm that all members are present and that we were quorate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Councillor Cheadle.
Councillor Crozier is here.
Right, I'll try Councillor Cheadle later. Councillor Crozier is here. Thank you. Councillor. Sorry.
I'm here, Darryl. I'm there.
Thanks, Councillor Cheadle. Councillor Hipsey.
Crozier present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hipsey.
Yes, just finishing my sandwich. I'm here. Thanks, I can hear you.
Councillor Mott.
Yeah, also incorrect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moy.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Renders.
Yes, present.
Councillor Vashon, thank you.
Present.
And thank you, Councillor Yelland.
Present.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Therefore, Chair, we have all 10 committee members on the call. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. And just by way of explanation again to the public, we do have an item on the agenda, which is item 10, which is the update on the Plymouth Road by our senior legal specialist. I have invited all members who wish to come into the committee are free to do so. Items 6, 7, 8 and 9, however, will just be for committee members to look at and discuss and debate. Okay, so if we now move to item 6, which is the licensing policy, that is for Ms. Stacey, I believe. I think you're going to introduce this. Ms. Stacey, I think, are you on mute?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Is that working now? Sorry.
It's better. We can hear you now. Thank you.
So just to summarise, it's a requirement for the Licensing Act 2003 that our Statement of Licensing policy is updated at least every 5 years. Our current policy was adopted in January 2016, and we now need to renew it before January next year. And the purpose of the policy is to assist the licensing authority when making decisions and to provide advice and clarity to applicants, business owners and local residents. The proposed draft document is at Appendix A of your papers, and a summary of the changes that have been made from the current policy is at Appendix B. Many of the amendments reflect changes in legislation and statutory guidance, And there are a few other changes which include new sections on partnership working, film classification, safeguarding, repeat applications, beer gardens and outdoor spaces, and representations. Part of the process of reviewing the policy involved undertaking a consultation on the draft policy. That was with the public, local businesses and responsible authorities, and also organisations that have an interest in licensing issues. A list of all those that we have consulted is at Appendix D of the licensing policy document. So there was an 8-week consultation which ran from the 21st of July to the 16th of October. And during that period, we received 8 responses, which I have put at Appendix C of your papers in a table. We reviewed the responses, and as you'll see, most do not require any further amendment to the policy. We have made amendments following Eric Partridge's response, also following the comments from Oakhampton Town Council, and also following Community Safety Partnerships response, and I have detailed those changes in the table. We also received comments from the Portman Group, and although that is really useful information, it's been decided that that's too much specific detail about that specific organisation for the policy document, but we will consider including it in our guidance for members of the public or for businesses. So there's no real financial implications resulting from the changes in the licensing policy. Licensing Act fees are fixed and nationally set, though this could be changing at some point in the future. So I'm bringing it to yourselves today as a final opportunity for you to ask any questions, propose any amendments, and to hopefully agree this policy and then recommend it to the Council in December for adoption in time for next January. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cheadle, question.
Yeah, thanks very much for the document. Very comprehensive, I thought, and well set out. The only comment I had was whether at any stage the licensing policy should have as one of its objectives to support the local economy.
The licensing policy, well, we're very much restricted when we look at license applications and when yourselves make licensing decisions by the 4 licensing objectives. So we can only make decisions based on those objectives. So that's the legal boundaries. In terms of the economy, we have put in there, I believe, that we follow the council's core objectives. So obviously that is the local economy is part of that. But if that's the suggestion, we could certainly look at putting something more specific about the economy. Is there a particular kind of suggestion that you or anyone else would have?
Well, the only point I picked up as I sort of read through it was it's all, and quite rightly so, all about protection of individuals and communities and what have you, about potentially sort of threatening applications, which would be inappropriate. But there doesn't seem to be anything in there about the role of the licensing authority in supporting the local economy. And I just thought, given right now in particular, support to the local economy is so important, that should run like a sort of golden thread through almost everything the council's doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, what we have done, we have made, you've probably seen, reference to the current situation. Obviously, as this is a policy document that is for 5 years, we don't want to make things too specific to what's happening, while we're writing the policy. We have made some comments in relation to the coronavirus regulations that we are all under at the moment, and that we would support businesses, and we have been working in partnership with environmental health and the other authorities to try and support businesses to make head nor tail of these regulations and to continue with their businesses as well, support them with any applications they need to make, etc. So we have got slight reference to that, but if there's something further, we can certainly look at that.
Well, there wasn't anything specific. It was just, as I say, as I read through it, I didn't spot any reference to supporting businesses, which I thought was an element that we could have included. But I'll wait to see what other councillors have got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Moyes.
Yes, under 1.8.3, the policy will support the licensing authority in its obligation to promote the following 4 licensing objectives. And number 4 is the protection of children from harm. Later on in the report, vulnerable adults are included, quite rightly. Should the vulnerable adults not be included in the protection of children and vulnerable adults from harm?
Well, those 4 objectives are set out in the legislation, so that's we can't amend those 4 objectives.
Oh, I see.
So that's where it differs, but we've added vulnerable adults as like our local policy when it comes to safeguarding. So that's why there's a difference there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vash.
Thank you. A bit of a cheeky one here. Would any of this be impacted by Brexit coming in the new year?
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't really. Our policy shouldn't change due to Brexit. Obviously, we will have to go along with any changes that come in with Brexit. I mean, potentially, because at the moment you can apply for a license to sell alcohol from anywhere in Europe or the world. Whether that would change, that could impact on it. But other than that, I can't see any implications from Brexit on the licensing policy.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair. Could I have another? I've got another query on some part of the document further in. Is it okay to ask a question on that?
Supplemental question. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, brilliant. On page 52 or 20 of the report, of the draft report itself, under 356 in the red text, and we've got the 5th point down, which is regarding examples of measures that may include but not being limited to, and it's talking about operating a robust search on entry policy with procedures in place to confiscate controlled drugs found during searches. Obviously, but the ordinary person is not allowed to search anybody else. Only the police are allowed to do searches of people. So we're talking about door operatives doing searches here, which they can do, providing they get the permission of the person they're searching. I just wonder if we need to sort of clarify that somewhat, so that we're not saying that they do have the right to search people. And also the other caveat on that would be people of certain religious faiths are not allowed to be searched by people of the opposite sex. So there needs to be quite a few bits of caveat and more wording to this. I'm presuming the consultation is coming from the police authority for this. Am I correct in that?
That's right. So all the responsible authorities, of which the police is one, are consulted on the licensing policy. So yes, they are well aware of it. In relation to that section, that is obviously some example conditions that people may want to consider when they're looking at applying for a license, and they might want to propose some conditions to promote the objective of the prevention of crime disorder. We give a lot of guidance to applicants when they apply for a license. That kind of condition would probably be in very minority of types of premises, perhaps something like a music festival or a very late night premises. Only those very small types of premises would ever have that kind of condition imposed on them. And usually when a condition is imposed, it would be expanded upon as well. But that's certainly something I can tweak and add in with certain extra kind of explanations. If you think that's a sensible idea, I've made a note of that.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce, you said you've got comment, and we're in questions at the moment. Do you have a question, or do you want to reserve for debate?
No, mine's been covered by Councillor Vashon, actually. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Doesn't seem to be any further questions, I don't think. So I will move the recommendations as laid out on page 27. Can I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chairman. Councillor
Thank you.
Pearce, yeah.
Thank you. Paused because I thought somebody was typing something in. Okay, members, we are in debate. Does anybody wish to speak? Okay. So we will take a vote on that. Mr. White, do we need to vote on an individual basis, or the fact that there's no debate, can we take that as voting by exception?
I'm happy, Chair, in the absence of any debate, for this to be taken by exception. Thank you.
Okie dokie. So have anybody got any issues not happy with? Nope. Okay, so that can go through then to recommend to full council.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Just let me find my way a minute. So we're now item 7, the annual licensing report, which is on page 99 of your agenda. And Mr. Weimer, I think this one's yours.
That is also.
Or is it yours? Sorry.
Right. Again. And it is really just a summary overview for just to be noted, to be honest, unless there's anything particular anyone wants to raise from it.
Okay. So has everybody had a chance to have a look? Anybody got any questions? No. Okay, so this one is for noting. So thank you very much indeed from Stacey for your time on this one.
Thank you.
Item 8, planning appeals update. That's page 101. That is definitely Mr. Weimer.
Chair, do you need to go to Councillor Pearce first? He's just put a comment in.
Oh, right. So you had. Sorry, I hadn't seen you there, Councillor Pearce.
Sorry, Chairman. I just think that the last report that we looked at with the new and variation applications, gives a good indication of how we support the economy by the wide range of new and variation applications there to different premises. And it's just picking up partly on what Councillor Cheadle was saying earlier. I think when you look at that list, it's quite quite varied, and what we've supported. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Item 8, planning appeals update. Mr. Weimer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I must admit I did almost have kittens when I thought I was going to be doing the licensing report.
To keep you on your toes.
Very much so. Okay, on to appeals. We've got a relatively light month this month. So I'll go through them, and I'll also touch on the appeal that was lodged if it helps. So starting from the top, 0188 of 20, which was outlined for 5 dwellings that was refused on a delegated basis, and our view was there were 3 reasons for refusal. One, it was contrary to TTP 25 in terms of the mix, didn't address DEV 32 in terms of carbon efficiency and climate change, and the really out of character with the area. So we'll see how that progresses at appeal. The first of the decisions where the appeal was dismissed, this is for whilst it's titled a new single-story dwelling, it's effectively that consent was granted for a. No, sorry, I'm getting confused with the one below. No, consent was granted for an annex, but as they're building as a dwelling, so they've already subdivided the plot. The inspectors looked at it and basically said that the subdivision itself provides a cramped form of development. There's a lack of outdoor space for this property, and it would have cause harm to the living conditions of the main property if this was a separate dwelling. So that was refused. We will need to revisit the site just to make sure that what's being constructed is in line with the approved annex, and anything that has taken place that hasn't got consent is looked at. So some of my enforcement colleagues will be going out there and having a look. Sorry, was that
Sorry,
No, it's all right. Carry on. I'll bring Councillor Pearce in for a question in a minute when you've done. It's okay. Carry on.
Okay. And the final one is, I think officers are going to have to mull this one over because the inspector has approved a two-storey extension on the side of the dwelling that's effectively full width, full height. The inspector acknowledges that it is contrary to the advice in the SPD, but says that notwithstanding that, it wouldn't be experienced on the street scene as an inconsistent feature out of character with its surroundings. So he's effectively set the SPD aside. I think we need to, as officers, we need to have a look at that and see, come to a conclusion whether we've been interpreting the SPD wrong. I don't think we have, because the inspector acknowledged that it was contrary, but perhaps we need to think about these sorts of applications and whether we need to give a wider context than just relying on the SPD. That's something that we will need to look at. That's me finished on appeals, but obviously happy for questions.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm wondering if I've got the right one, actually. Is this one at Old Lanson Road, is that in Sunway Close, Mr. Weimer?
I don't think so.
Right, okay, because I know there's been a inspector's decision on the one in Sunway Close, which is a permission was granted for an annex.
It might be then, Councillor.
And they've taken the whole hedgerow out.
Between
between the main road, Lamerton Road, and the cul-de-sac, and I'm just hoping that we take enforcement action to reinstate the hedge, because it's an absolute eyesore.
The difficulty we're going to have, Councillor, is if it's a green hedge, as in it's a live hedge they've removed, then you don't require planning consent to remove them where they are adjacent to. So the hedgerow regulations don't bite if that hedgerow is adjacent to a private garden. So it's one of the main. It is one of the main. I was going to say loopholes. It's not really a loophole. It's one of the main areas that the hedgerow regulations absolutely went.
It's ridiculous, because I mean it's just an open, right onto the main road. There's no pavement or anything. I mean, I'll have to go back to the inspector's report, but I think he made mention of it as well.
Oh, yeah, he did, but it's and did make mention that it really wasn't very attractive. But I don't absolutely have enforcement go and have a look at it. But if we're looking at the removal of a growing hedge, I'd be very, very surprised if we've got any powers to take any action, because it falls outside the planning system.
Right. I mean, it's destroyed the whole character of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
It really has. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't disagree with that.
Thank you.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Mr. Weimer. I wonder if you can help. I did miss the number of the first one you reported. Was it 4003?
No, it was 188.
Sorry, I couldn't quite catch it, and I just wanted to see exactly what it was. No, that's answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Nothing else on that one, then that is all for noting. Thank you. So then we move to item 9, which is the Development Management Action Plan, which, if you remember at the last meeting, we agreed the recommendations and that the action plan would be drawn up and brought back to this committee for adoption. And then it would then go forward to overview and scrutiny to receive a progress report or a progress update on the plan within the next 6 months. Who's bringing this one? Mr. Weimer?
That is me this time, Chair. Thank you.
Lovely.
Okay, members, I'll be quite brief in my introduction, because this is something that's quite quite been discussed in certainly the last meeting and some others. So the action plan brings forward the recommendations that you endorsed at your last meeting, and puts actions and a timescale against every recommendation that was in Mr. Fairbairn's report. Rather than going through every action, I'll quite happily answer any questions on any of them. I don't believe any of the recommendations have been missed out, and I think there is an action to all of them, and I hope members will be encouraged by the timescales put to those actions, but I'll quite happily answer any questions.
Any questions, members? I see Councillor Cheadle is typing question. Yep, okay, Councillor Cheadle.
Thanks. Yeah, I welcome this. It's good news, and thank you very much, Pat, for bringing it forward. I've got two little ones just to ask. One is on 6, the scheme of delegation. I seem to recall a discussion we had about presumption. That is when a planning officer contacts a member, asks if they're happy for delegated authority, and then presumes that they are if they don't positively hear back from the member. And I remember the discussion, but I don't remember quite what decision we came to. But there was a move to suggest that there ought to be some sort of positive signal from the member that they're happy for delegation rather than an assumed one. Do you recall that debate?
I recall the debate, Councillor. There's two things. To start off with, this report itself doesn't bring forward changes to the scheme of delegation. What it sets out is that a report will go to full council next month, setting out what those changes would be.
Okay.
And then there'll be a further report to council next year during the annual review of the constitution that may then bring forward further changes to the delegation report. My recollection of the debate, and I'm sure Mr. Fairbairn would correct me if I'm wrong, is yes, there was that discussion, but I felt that overall members came to the view that if the time period for members to respond was increased from 3 working days to 5 working days, then that was a reasonable time frame for members to come back, and the onus would be then on members to come back within that time frame. That is my recollection. I believe that is how the changes to the current scheme of delegation will come back to full council. Obviously, at that point, it would be entirely up to members to debate and consider whether that way forward is appropriate.
Okay, fine. We'll leave it for the debate to happen at the proper time. I've got one other tiny little proposition to make, and it's not actually part of this action plan, but it sort of slipped through the cracks when we were discussing it. Could we please start numbering the paragraphs in the planning officer's reports?
I think it can be within this report, because there is a section talking about committee reports and saying that we're going to redo the templates for committee reports once the new IT system is in place, which should be early part of next month. So there's no reason why when we redo those templates, we can't start doing numbered paragraphs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so much easier in the sort of Skype environment that we're in to find things when you can whiz straight to a paragraph number.
Yes, it's a good point, actually, Councillor Cheadle. Rather than all playing our way through and counting down paragraphs, it will make it much easier. So, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Moyse. Oh, hang on a minute. Mr. Fairbairn wanted to just come in and say something a minute. Can I just bring Mr. Fairbairn in a minute, please?
Yeah. Yeah, Chairman, it was just to pick up on the point Councillor Cheadle raised about the presumption. I think my recollection of the way that the discussion ended was that it was recognised that there were responsibilities on both sides, and that there was a responsibility on members to respond to emails, to read their emails and to respond to them. So I think that's, and together with the extended period for replying, I think that's why we didn't move towards a presumption. And indeed, apart from the fact it would add further burdens to officers to chase members, and for that reason, it was recognised that there was a joint responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that, David. We'll have to make sure that members understand that completely.
Yes, if members are working, then it would mean that officers would need to be trying to ring them in the evening, which that's would be unreasonable, I think. Councillor Moyes, please.
Yes, just a query. On page 107, it says details of an application are usually incorporated into the planning permission. Now, there's a circumstance not too far from me where the applicant suggested that they needed this extra facility for themselves, and it's actually been turned into 2 homes. Really, is there anything we can do about that? It's not within West Devon, it's in the national park, by the way.
With the greatest respect, Councillor, I don't quite understand the question.
Well, if the planning permission says the extension or whatever is for a particular reason, and it turns out not to be when it's built, is there any enforcement action we can take on that?
Okay, that's slightly different. That's slightly different to the incorporation in the title, which I think David might be able to explain better than I can. It is, as a general principle, and I'll use this as an example because this is the one where I would hold my hands up and say I've done it wrong in the past many years ago with a different authority. I hasten to add, if you get an application for, say, a holiday unit, so let's say someone makes a planning application for a holiday unit, they build said holiday unit, but they then occupy it as a house and it's not a holiday unit. That is acceptable if the authority have forgotten to put on a restrictive condition saying it has to be holiday unit because there's no change of use. So if you've got an extension, or if you've got something that says it's going to be an annex, and it's then I think to cover ourselves, we ought to put a condition on saying it is an annex and should not be used as a separate unit, although there still would be an argument to say there's a further change of use from the annex to a separate unit. It really depends on, it's very much a case-by-case basis. So if they've got an extension and then they're using it as a separate unit, then I would say there's a clear change of use because it's gone from 1 dwelling to 2 and there's no permitted development for that. So it depends, but without knowing the specifics of the case, it's a very difficult question to answer.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll look it all up.
Okay. Thank you. Councillors Hipsey, Mott, and Crozier, please.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Just a comment on number 5, member induction and training. I think given some of the discussions we've had this morning, I have to admit, every time I do one of these meetings, I learn something new, which is great, and I really appreciate those that do the teaching. But it sort of points up the fact that there's nothing more important in my book as the general induction at the beginning when one first becomes a member of DMNL to get this right. So I think we need to really push this hard. It's not just to bridge the gap between a previous member at an election and a new member. I think we need to push this all the time. I've heard mention of this concept of detention. Some of you might be able to enlighten me on that one, but to be honest, anything new, any sort of teaching aspect to this would be extremely valuable as far as I'm concerned. So I know I'd just like to emphasise that whole thing, but also to just follow up on Councillor Cheadle's point. I think again today we've shown the value of having paragraph numbers and also page numbers. It does make life so much easier to refer to one or the other. It's a small point, but I think it's an important one. And I think, Mr. Wyman, you spoke about a new template. I hope it's got a spell check, because at the end of the day, these are quasi-legal documents, and to have typos and spelling mistakes is probably undermining our case a lot of times. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Weimer, did you want to come back?
Yes, please. I think my view is somewhat changed over time. Whilst I absolutely agree that induction is incredibly important, actually I think ongoing training is probably more important, because for new members, that first 2 weeks of induction, you must have so much information thrown at you. I think if we did any more in the induction stage, I think it probably would be information overload. And for obvious reasons, not all it will be taken in. So I think it's more around continuous training from my point of view. Yes, have a very clear and proper induction and make sure that any issues that are within that ward are brought to that member's attention if at all possible. But I think it's then ongoing after that. The concept of detention is previously either before or after a DMNL committee, if there were particular topics, when we would try and organise some half-hour or hours training. And I think that's something that we really ought to try and bring in again. Although the downside to that is that that very much picks up DM members, but then doesn't pick up DMNL members or non-DMNL members who may be substitutes who just weren't at that particular committee at the time. So I think we need to think about being inclusive to all members about training, and probably either have separate sessions, not necessarily on different days to committee, but rather than just tacked on the end. I think they need to be timed sessions that everybody could attend. I agree with you on paragraph numbers. I think page numbers are going to be more difficult, simply because we've potentially got 3, 4, 5 officers writing individual reports, so they couldn't do the page numbering. And I don't know how easy it is for democratic services to them that they could then put the page numbers on, but the individual case officers, because they've got their report, wouldn't necessarily know what they are. So I think paragraph numbers on individual reports is the way forward on that point. Thank you.
Can I come back on that, please, Chair?
Well, just to say, I was going to say the page numbers are actually on the agendas anyway, and they would be on Modern Gov. So they're all numbered. We've got, the pack is actually all got page numbers on them. And I think part of the thing with training actually is, I don't know about anybody else, but I have found that while we've been doing remote meetings, I think it is much harder to actually schedule training, because today, for instance, because of issues with IT, we started 90 minutes later, which is a huge amount of time later. So therefore we are running much later. So if we'd have had a detention scheduled in, we'd have probably had to park it. Whereas in face-to-face meetings, it is a bit easier to stick to time. Councillor Hipps, did you want to come back with further question?
No, it really just to come back on Pat's answer. And Pat, I completely agree with pretty much everything you said. I take your point about page numbers, and I suppose if you've got paragraph numbers, perhaps you don't need page numbers. But I would also say, and I very much take your point about sort of overload at induction, which to my mind makes induction even more important. And I think I've got some pretty strong feelings, as some people know, about training, but I think that needs to be absolutely just the most important points at the very beginning, and then, as you said, maybe the way to go ahead is to schedule in planning training that anybody can take part in. And perhaps if that was actually, I don't know whether this is legally possible, but to bring in the points from recent applications, that would be helpful. I'll leave it at that. I think that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Mott, Councillor Crozier and Councillor Pearce. So Councillor Mott, please.
Thank you, Chair. To a degree, my comments already been addressed by Mr. Fairbairn and by Pat. So it was just really to reiterate that we as members do have a responsibility as well, not just those of us that are on the planning committee, but every member with regard to any application that comes up within their ward. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to remind members, we are on questions on this. Councillor Crozier, Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to endorse the comments made by Pat Weimer just now again on continuous development. Very, very important. Bite-sized chunks, wonderful. But the point I was going to make in addition to that was in respect of councillors who are not in ward but adjacent to a ward where a big development's taking place. And dare I mention Golworthy and West Tavistock and Tallington Road, but it would be much more helpful if I had easier access to comment on that at the time. And probably, you know, we were kept in the dark quite a bit. Once we got out of the dark, we didn't hear any more until we heard it was being given delegated authority. So perhaps members in adjacent wards to big developments should be concerned with delegated authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce?
Yes, Chairman, my question has been partially answered, so I have comments, so I'll wait until debate, if I may, please.
Thank you. Mr. Weimer.
So I just going back on Councillor Crozier's comment. It's really difficult to know at what point we need to be consulting adjoining ward members. If the concern is about major development, I think the fact that we're going to start bringing a report to the committee on a monthly basis that sets out all of the larger major developments and where we are and where they are in the process, I think would make sure that there's a published report that all members would have access to see where they are with those particular applications. And there's absolutely nothing to stop adjoining ward members giving the case officer a call just to have an update. But certainly, as the delegation scheme is written at the moment, and I'm not aware of any reason to change it at the moment, the delegation process would just remain with the ward members and not necessarily the adjacent ward members. If members wish to choose that, then there's something that can be considered. But it's going to be very difficult to get a prescriptive delegation system that says we have to consult adjoining ward members unless we have to consult them on every application, and then sure you're not necessarily going to want to be pulled in for delegation on tiny applications that just happen to be within sort of 300 or 400 metres of the ward boundary. So I'm hopeful that actually providing additional information to DM committee in terms of where we are with those bigger applications should help provide more information to all members. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Nope. Okey-doke. In that case, I will move the recommendations as laid out on page 103. Is there a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chairman. Councillor Pearce here.
Thank you. And you wanted to speak in debate?
If I could, please, yes.
Yep.
It's just one minor thing and one major thing. The minor thing is that in item 3, section 106 agreements, under details, we've got a typo where in the last line where I feel it should be and signed within a reasonable period of time.
Well spotted.
The other thing I would like to bring up is in the same item 3 section, but the final paragraph under details. Where the 106 agreements are being emailed copied to ward members, I'm wondering whether members of the DM committee should also have that copied to them. And it's something I think I would consider would be most helpful to the DM committee members. Thank you.
Mr. Weimer, you any comment on that one?
I suppose it's down to members. I don't mind if it'll be, we do a standard email to a number of people, so we could easily do that to members of DM. Whether the rest of the DM committee would want to have all of the Section 106 agreements that get signed, and there are an awful lot that are only to do with there are lots of unilaterals that are only to do with providing some payment to the Tamar Valley EMS scheme, and you'd be getting all of those as well, because we couldn't do it for some and not others. So it's entirely up to members. I've got no strong views one way or the other.
Could I come back, please,
Yeah.
Chairman?
Yeah.
I was just thinking of the majors, and where we've got major developments. I think it would be helpful if the TM members knew what was happening with those when the actual 106 agreements are signed.
Chairman, there will be part of the briefing to DM and L committee members. They will include the progress of Section 106 agreements, so members should have that information. It's a question of whether they would then also require a copy of the agreement itself. I mean, as Pat has said, I don't have any strong view one way or the other. I just wonder if you've been given the details of where it's got to, is that as much information as you need, or do you need to have a copy of the agreement for some other reason?
Are the actual Section 106 on the website? In which case, would it just be appropriate for members to have the link?
The agreements will appear on the website, yes.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
I mean, members could think about this, and then it's something that could come forward at the full council meeting when this comes before full council. But I just thought it, certainly with major applications, it would be good if we had the information. But as Mr. Fairbairn has outlined, we will be involved in the information coming through as discussions take place with officers. But I just feel that we should know what the final outcome is and what is being provided under 106. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Weimer, you've got a comment, please?
Yeah, I'll be very quick. Just a couple of things. Councillor Pearce, as you see from other parts of the action plan, what we're proposing is to make sure that committee reports are a lot more, certainly a lot more clarity provided and a little bit more detail in terms of exactly what the heads of terms are proposed for Section 106, and if those heads of terms significantly change, then it may well have to come back to committee in any event. I think the best way forward is if we start doing the update reports to committee, and then if committee members feel they need to see a copy of the final signed report after it's been issued, we can change that process or add that into the process without the need to coming back to get council authorisation. I think that's a request that committee can ask, and we can just make that change. But I think if we try it how we're proposing at the moment and then see if that works, and if it doesn't work, then we can add that piece into it.
Okay, thank you. I'm content with that, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Nobody else has put anything on the chat. So in the light of that, I think we can now take this one to the vote. And I think we can probably vote by exception. So anybody against, basically. So we'll take that as carried. Thank you all very much.
Just to confirm, Chair, nobody is typing in the box, so we can take that unanimously carried. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So now we move on to item 10, which is all members who have joined on the meeting. Welcome to non-committee members. Thank you for your patience and for waiting. We now have update on the Plymouth Road by Senior Legal Specialist. That's Mr. Fairbairn. Verbal update. Over to you, Mr. Fairbairn. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies, first of all, for the absence of a written report. Essentially, you'll remember that the background to this is that the planning permission on Plymouth Road contained condition 37, which was the draft requirement that a draft section 106 agreement had to be completed prior to the commencement of development, and the form of the agreement was attached to the planning permission, and the report identified a number of issues. I'm not going to go into those issues. I just want to basically give a brief update to members as to what has happened since, because there's still a degree of further discussion and work to be done. But following the challenge from the adjacent landowner, we have had a meeting with them to establish a common understanding of the respective positions. We've also had a meeting with Devon County Council and Education, and that proved to be a very productive meeting. Further meetings are proposed, and we're expecting a detailed analysis or position statement by way of a response from the County Council in due course. I've also requested a meeting with DCC transport officers to have a conversation about the contributions towards or the County Council's approach to contributions towards the railway and local bus services. And all this is designed to recognise that we need to identify what the scope is for changes, and also to identify the mechanics for doing so. It may not be simply a case of amending the Section 106 agreement before it's signed. We may have to go through another process to do that. Rest assured, the matter is being taken forward, and we would hope to come back shortly to members with a full briefing in terms of where we are with the education contributions and the County Council's transport contributions policy. Chairman, I'm happy to take questions. I appreciate there's not a lot to said there, but we are moving forward, and it will lead to a more detailed briefing in due course. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fairbairn. Can we have assurances, please, that the ward members are being kept fully appraised?
Board members will be informed. Yes, they will be kept informed about what is occurring, as will all members, because it is it's a council-wide issue.
I know it's a council-wide issue, but I was thinking specifically as this is for the ward members as well. Councillor Hipsey, question.
Thanks, David, for that. Am I right in my assumption that progress has been made in unravelling the Emden Grange 106 agreements in terms of whether we need to pay them back or not? Did I see something from you? Or
there have been yes, there's been various emails flying around summarising the Section 106 agreements and who owes what and what's been paid and when things need to be paid back. Again, that'll come back. I think what we'll do is we can include that in a wrap-up report when we've got all the full understanding of where we are with the education contributions. I think it'll be helpful to all members to have that information, and we'll bring it forward in due course.
Thanks. Are the details of that sub judice at the moment?
No, it's just I don't have them immediately in front of me.
Okay.
But otherwise, I'm very happy to expand and provide those details to all members. It's not a problem. I just don't have them in front of me at the moment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from members, committee or non-committee? Can't see anything. We do have somebody with us on the phone. I'm not sure who it is, and I don't know if you can actually type if there is a question.
Hello, Chair. It's Councillor Spettigue, but I don't have a question at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just checking who. Okay. Lovely. In that case, Mr. Fairbairn, thank you very much indeed, and we look forward to receiving another update as and when we get there. And also, I think just need to acknowledge really thanks to everybody for their patience today, which has been a quite a difficult day in terms of IT. So thank you all for your support, and also to the IT department who worked incredibly hard to enable us to have a stable connection. Mr. White.
You've nicely linked me in there, Chair. It's actually just to make the point, members, that the great Skype switch off is this week. So this in theory is going to be the last formal member meeting over Skype, and there's going to be from now on in it we're going to be on Teams. So yeah, so I know Mr. Gardner's put emails out about sort of drop-in training and the like on Friday and Monday, but just to say this is the swan song for Skype, if you like.
Golly, Teams. Yes. Okay. Right. Thank you all very much. I might take a long holiday. Right. So I therefore declare the meeting formally closed at 20 to 3 and say thank you very much. Leslie, please, if you can cease the live feed, that'd be wonderful.